feeling a little strange,
Stop till you're a gazillionaire.
I've been feeling out of touch, been living my life on autopilot, haven't been doing much. Been a while since I tried to fly, I hope I'm up to snuff. Thought I might be nose diving, but my people come in clutch. Masters of their crafts and with the passions that they love, the world's eyes can finally open up and see the light that lives inside of them. Yeah. Cause we are the ones with the art touching your heart and soul. We are the ones encouraging your goals. Forever will we be in control of the art that starts the spark, lights up the dark. Remembering nights at the park when I was in such a hurry to get old. You know,
Won't stop till you're a gazillionaire.
most my memories are blurry, but some of them gold. I'm afraid of them fading, and I really hope they don't. I know that there's a time where everyone has got to go. But if I can, I'd really like to be the last step out of the door. Leaving everything behind seems like such a bore, and I don't believe that after this there's too much in store. But if anyone out there is keeping score, you can go tell your God and fire will be my floor. However, I feel as though I can thrive whatever the weather. I'll endeavor these bonds, you know I'd never sever. And as long as my words can come through clear and clever, I promise to treasure every ledger where I can see cash filling up letters. But that could never measure up to the leisure, the leisure, not having to be a damn people pleaser. Running my own show with those whose goals match my own. How high could we go? Just keep watching, Circle 31 is on a roll. Wanna jettison to a future where the place that I'm living in is something close to heaven, and no one I know has to work again. No sadness, don't have to play pretend. No false face just to keep the sorrow in. What about my feelings, should I swallow them? Or well, on my sleeve, constant thoughts of what I can and can't achieve. Future is bright but slightly out of focus, hoping I can keep it up, not be beholden to the thoughts inside of my head. Hold me back, and all the negativity was throwing me off track. But now that I've just jacked the vibe, seen inside my mind, clear enough to find sparks of creativity. I make my own design, start to realign the deformed version of the very angry person I once was. But I released all the hate and anger, and what's left is love, no regrets, lust and loads of sex. But I've passed all that, and the only one that gets my love next is me and one other. If I remain blessed, one head for all the rest of my nights on the chest. Killian. I look at life like it's a comedy, cause honestly, people commonly think that cosmically that there's one meaning for all. But now probably think there's only one path to follow. I find it comically absurd. Rethink your life, no hate if what you use works. But for others, no, your footsteps might be much worse. Don't worry about walking a mile in my shoes or vice versa. We might be able to fit each other's nights, but we have our own long nights, and what hurts us. And even if the shoes were switched and those shoes fit, life's just too different. Even if it's similar things we've seen, we can't trade up everywhere our cranium's been. So if you took my path, you might go on to say it's soft as feathers, or you may find yourself shattered, broken, and not able to be put back together. Same as the first verse with the vice versa. Take my advice or swerve, I'm not trying to hurt you. That's why I laugh, throw my head back and let my mind grasp that I'm alive. Even though I didn't ask, here I am, I guess it's fine. Either do my best or waste away and die. Guess I can try to survive, to thrive, to vibe to every song I make. Got a world to shake. I'm here whether I wanna be or not, and it won't be for naught. Don't get caught up in my wake. I suppose I'll save you from drowning for your sake, but don't expect to be able to have your cake and eat it too. You owe me, fool, for risking my neck and livelihood for you, not doing what you should've done. If there was a woulda, coulda situation, whose side are you on? You could've done more, you should've done less. You would've, but you weren't motivated by the stress. I took most of it away just to give you less, but now the marks on my body pressed. I'll always forgive, but I just can't forget. I live in the ocean, I'm hoping that I can get the scratch to start it up so I can be going. Have a bunch of reasons in my head growing about how I believe my life should be led, and I can't wait to see it. All the seasons on the 7th season, ocean breezes always moving, never freezing. Day we're always seasoned, my whole crew is seasoned. You would not believe it, do not come at treason. You can't seem to reason off the plank is how you're leaving. I won't accept mutinies, come clapping at you, Captain. We can shoot the breeze. Differences, you've forgotten how to breathe, cause the shock to getting shocked has you sucking through your teeth. Baby boy still sucking on his mother's teeth. Toddler's dad has just pissed himself, crying out for relief. I could give it to him, King Killian.
Now my microphone is working. There we go. Much, much better. Hello, everyone. Hello, the Daltsu, who's definitely watching me, and many other people who aren't. Yeah, this conversation around gender will absolutely never die, and it doesn't die. But I think it's an important fight to keep fighting. The other day, I was on with John, and it seems like John fucked up a little bit. As in, John thought that he told Mace that we were doing it Saturday, but we weren't doing it Saturday. So now we are doing it Saturday. Now we are doing it Sunday. Yeah, it was always supposed to be Sunday. John fucked up and didn't tell Mace. So that's kind of where we are right now. Now it might be that I fucked up and the show is actually at 6. But I thought it was going to be at 5. Anyhow, we can do a bunch of stuff, fun stuff. Dal, if you're still wanting to, I can bring you on right now, and we can have a conversation about gender like we were supposed to do. So, King Killian. Yeah, by the way, for those who don't know, the opening music was King Killian. He's a member of the Discord, and he just dropped an album, and it's pretty good. It's great, chill music. I love it, and I'll keep playing it. Opening. Try to get him people on. Oof. What is this oof, Daltsu? I don't understand. What is this oof? Oof for what? Do you want if you want to come on, you can definitely come on. That'd be a fun little conversation we can have. Don, I've been trying to get this on. I'm about to head to the movies. Ugh. Whatever. That's fine. That happens. I see. That's fine, that works. So I might have been wrong about the timing, so I have an hour to kill with you guys. Damn, I was invited to a barbecue. Could have went to a barbecue. Oh, oof at the miscommunication, the scheduling. Yeah. Man, this topic not only is getting super redundant for me, and I'm like losing it. Like I even forgot to say that it was a I lost the word again. Why is it when I sit in front of my computer, I lose this word? Not discursive, discrete. Yeah, last night I forgot. Yeah. next weekend. I mean, I'm off next week completely, so we can definitely figure out a time. I'm not working next week, so we'll be able to definitely figure out a time then. But yeah, this conversation is getting so tedious. So, like, I even forget the word discrete variable as opposed to continuous variable. And then in the conversation with John, I said gender dysmorphia. God, how cringe is that? It's gender dysphoria, dysmorphia. I'm ashamed of myself. Very, very much ashamed of myself. But this is what I can do, and this is what we can do. I know, like, one person's watching this, which is cool. What's up? But anyone else who isn't watching, so I was thinking maybe we can watch some videos, react to some Pangburn content, which is cool. Travis keeps posting specific stuff about, you know, all these great thinkers that we know. Oh, let me post this in the announcements tab. I always forget to do that. So let's go ahead and post in the announcements tabs. At everyone. Control paste. Pop. Yes, send it to everyone. Good. Let's go ahead and see who's in the chats. We'll post it in ideology that I'm having a live stream right now. Let's post it in politics that I'm having a thing right now. Let's put it in psychology. These are all related to one another. Get some people in the chat. Yeah, but let's go ahead and react to some of Travis's current videos. Let's see. Just make sure that the transition works. Excellent. This should be in the center more. I got it. Yeah, we can do that easily. Okay. So, a little bit uncentered. There we go. Excellent. Let's see. So, here, there's a few videos. I think there's a good one that was posted up, which was like claim analysis. Claim analysis 3. How many claim analysis has there been? Man, this guy's been putting in work. Claim analysis 1. Let's go with this one.
Texas.
That's okay. I'm from Alberta, you know. It's bigger than Texas, just as bad. It's not that easy to distinguish
He said it,
what's
not me.
useful and what's real. Well, I thought about it a lot, you know, and I do try to think about where I'm wrong, because I would like to figure out where I'm wrong, because then I wouldn't have to be wrong anymore. It's not something you can hand wave away. Jung was a mystic. It's like, sorry. He was about as smart as Friedrich Nietzsche.
Are there valid and sound arguments that would lead one to conclude that a God exists? My answer to this so far seems to be no.
Ding. Subscribe.
I
Whatever.
thought it would be
Let's
nice
see.
if we started with something quick and easy and simple, like God.
The lobster man. Quick and you gotta admit, you gotta really appreciate Matt Dillahunty's rhetorical technique, right? He starts out by priming easy and simple, like the concept of God. He's already telling the audience, oh, this is simple. This shouldn't take too long. In a way, both showing his hand, showing his bias, but in a really clever way. A lot of times people will show their bias saying, well, I believe that the solution to God is quite a simple one, right? That kind of is a weak way to talk. If we remember, like, our high school careers, they always said, don't use I when you're talking about, in your essays, use one. Well, Matt's even going a step further. He's not even talking to anyone. He's just saying, I thought we would start with an easy and simple topic like God. Very affirmative, very strong opening by Matt, actually, just from a debate perspective.
In particular, I don't believe there is one, and I have no idea what your thoughts are on it.
You mean on the fact that you don't believe there is one?
I mean just about the subject in general, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts on about what I don't think is, well, maybe.
Well, it's a complicated problem. And I don't.
Yeah, he is real quick. It's a complicated problem. Okay. Interesting that he's starting it out as it's a complicated problem. That is interesting to me. I don't think it's that. It might be complicated. You know, I'll take it back. It's a complicated idea for people who haven't thought through it. Me being on the tail end of being an atheist, and a lot of viewers are, we're so used to just thinking, oh, it's not complicated. It's a 2-second issue. But for someone new, someone who's just thinking about these topics, this really might be a serious, topic. It might be a really difficult topic to contend with. And I think it's important to keep in mind. A lot of times I get frustrated and other people get frustrated over this conversation that it seems because we're short. We've been through the rigmarole. We've spoken about this so much. So Peterson here, that's fine. I have no issue with that. I was going to have an issue with it, but I had to curb back my own hubris. So
I think that we take it with due seriousness. I specifically don't think that the celebrity atheist types, who I actually have a fair bit of respect for, by the way, take it with due seriousness. So I don't think that they take it with due seriousness from a biological perspective.
So he's talking about celebrity atheists who don't take it as due seriousness, but this is where it's interesting, a biological perspective.
So I don't think that they take it with due seriousness from a biological perspective or a phenomenological perspective or a literary perspective or a metaphoric perspective.
So I really, if I would sit with him, I would ask him, what the fuck is a biological perspective on the question of God? I don't even know what that is. I really have no idea what that is. A phenomenological perspective, that's an interesting perspective to take. And literary and metaphorical about the existence of God, I guess maybe as like an intersubjective fact or like a literary element, sure.
That'll do for starters. I've become convinced that the fundamental presuppositions of our very functional cultures, or Western cultures say, are nested immovably in a metaphorical substrate. And that when you enter that metaphorical substrate, you're in the domain of religious phenomenology. And I think that...
Okay. So a few things for me to watch out for is he believes that the Western culture is in the layer for the immovable layer of a metaphor. So the foundation for him of Western society is this notion of God, which iffy at best, because Western culture also is from notions of gods and goddesses and all these other things that have to do with it. Also, paganism is a big part in the tradition of Christianity itself. There's a saying for Jews, Christianity is Judaism plus paganism. So, but he believes that when you enter the layer of a metaphor, you are in the domain of religious experience.
Not only can you derive that conclusion as a consequence of deep philosophical thought and literary analysis, but that if you know enough about brain function, you'll also come to the same conclusion. I think you come to the same conclusion as well if you look at the evolution of religious cognition from the perspective of an evolutionary biologist and not from the position of a evolutionary biologist whose head is addled by the belief that most of human morality was established in the 500 years since the Enlightenment.
So you have to be a specific type of evolutionary biologist to view this problem in a specific way. He said a lot of things there. Let me go back and run through them because I had a thought before he said that.
Position of a evolutionary biologist whose head is addled by the belief of religious cognition from the conclusion as well. If you look at the evolution of religious cognition from the perspective of an evolutionary biologist,
religious cognition. That's a really interesting thing to say. Cognition, the thought. How do we define cognition here? How are we defining cognition here? The states are probably involved in knowing which of their completeness in perception or judgment. Cognition includes conscious and all unconscious parts by which knowledge is accumulated. So religious cognition, the conscious and unconscious process by which religious knowledge is accumulated. Maybe he's talking about some type of collective cognition. Sure. Very unindividualistic, by the way, but still sure, I guess.
I think you come to the same conclusion as well if you look at the evolution of religious cognition from the perspective of an evolutionary biologist and not from the position.
Well, only an evolutionary biologist who doesn't think that the current moral norms have been developed in the last 500 years, which I don't know why evolutionary biology would even consider that, because in the last 2,000 years, it's not like we've had real biological evolution to make our morals more related to God, or maybe the notion of gods he's talking about, or like ultimate telos. But that's not what we mean, he at least means by God, or most religious people mean by God. It's a little bit of, I know there's a video of Sam, it's a bit of Jesus smuggling, but I'm talking too much. Let's see how Matt deals with this, actually. So,
of a evolutionary biologist whose head is addled by the belief that most of human morality was established in the 500 years since the Enlightenment. So that's a start, I guess.
Except, and so you have to bear with me, because I'm from Texas.
Oh, that just crashed. Let's restore that tab again. Yeah, that would be evolutionary psychology. You're right, Salman. Sorry about that. My graphics card has a fan that stops working, and it just didn't really work like it needed to.
So you have to bear with me.
So where was I?
Look at the evolution position of a evolutionary biologist whose head is addled by the belief that most of human morality was established in the 500 years since the Enlightenment. So that's a start, I guess.
Except, and so you have to bear with me, because I'm from Texas.
That's okay. I'm from Alberta, you know. It's bigger than Texas, just as bad.
Yeah. So the curious thing for me is all of that applies, seemingly, if I'm understanding it, to religious thought, religious tradition, the value of religious identity to individuals. And I don't see that any of it relates to whether or not there is a God or whether or not there's sufficient reason to believe there's a God, which is my sticking point. I'm fully fine with the idea. Oh, yeah.
Give me 1 second, because my fan, I don't want my computer to crash. Give me a second. My fans aren't really working. Okay, everything's back to normal. I apologize about this. Yeah, evolutionary psychology is a very questionable field. Salman, you're 100% right. It's super questionable because it's really a lot of post hoc rationalizations, right? It's not like I can go ahead and validate my theories by looking at, fossils or try to find specific markers in the land or whatever. I can't make predictions about what I would find. Well, evolutionary biology is a pretty easy field to substantiate. Well, let's back to Matt's response, because I totally missed it because of my fans freaking out.
So the curious thing for me is all of that applies, seemingly, if I'm understanding it, to religious thought, religious tradition, the value of religious identity to individuals. And I don't see that any of it relates to whether or not there is a God or whether or not there's sufficient reason to believe there's a God.
So it seems to me here that Matt is talking about mind-dependent notions of God. Does God exist in the same way that a tree exists? Does God exist in the same way that, the cosmos exists? Peterson is talking about this metaphorical, cognitive, a bedrock, a metaphysical. It's almost like he's blurring the lines between like a transcendental argument for God and like it's almost like a presuppositionalist, but not really, but like kinda. That's kind of what I get from Peterson.
Which is my sticking point. I'm fully fine with the idea. Oh, yeah, we'll try and get through this without like raucous applause, but hey, at least I got one.
Yeah, you don't never complain about raucous applause.
Because that's a sticking point for me. I have no problem acknowledging that people derive value from their beliefs, whether or not they map to anything in reality. That they can be inspired and motivated, educated, and enlightened by poetry, prose, metaphor, allegory. But my concern is, having grown up a fundamentalist Southern Baptist, the people who I know and some of the people who are working to enact legislation on behalf of their beliefs are convinced that they have good reason to believe that there actually is a God, not just that it's useful to them.
Well, it's not that easy to distinguish between what's useful and what's real. So I think that distinction can be made, but it's a lot more difficult than people generally think. And I also think that there's no doubt that there are different levels of sophistication of religious belief. What I see happening in this sort of discussion, say frequently, and again, like I said, I have a fair bit of respect for the atheist types because they spend a lot of time thinking, and that's generally a good thing.
Okay, thinking is good. Yes, Peterson.
Of their thinking, however, directed at the fundamentalist types, the fundamentalist Christian types, mostly of the American persuasion, who suffer from the somewhat understandable illusion that the biblical corpus has the same epistemological and ontological status as a scientific theory, when it clearly doesn't.
Correct.
I mean, if you're
okay, now we're closer to the same page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're a religious thinker, let's say.
At this point, I disagree with Peterson, not because of what he just said, but because of the idea that God holds together the foundation of Western society. I mean, American society was for those who don't know about American history, the founding fathers were extremely secular, so much to the point that after the ratification and creation of the next constitution after the Articles of Confederation, there was the first Great Reawakening, which was a movement in American history that said that the foundation of the country was too secular and we had to bring God back into the mix. I mean, it wasn't until the 1950s that under God was put into the Pledge of Allegiance of the United States or was put on the money. So there's many Western civilizations that have exactly prospered because of their lack of metaphysical substrate. But Peterson would say that they still did it. They still had the Christian ethos. But he is based. You're right. If we're attacking religious thought, we can't just attack the fundamentalist Christians in the south of the United States. There are many, 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 many other types of Christians, just like there are many types of Jews and many types of Muslims, and it's important to understand the intricacies between them. And yes, Jack, your music is awesome. Of course I'm going to plug that in. You kidding me? Why not?
If you're a serious student of religious thought and a serious philosopher, one of the things you can't claim is that whatever story the Bible is telling is a scientific theory. And that's just self-evident. First of all, like, when was the first scientist? Descartes, Bacon, Newton? Maybe you could chase it back to the Greeks.
I just want to respond to Salman. You can argue that inalienable rights is barred from religious thought. I actually don't think it's barred from religious thought. For many of the history of Europe, there were kings who had different rights than peasants. Religions, in many ways, gave rights to specific groups over other groups. inalienable rights was the grounding of rights in nature, something that we all share in common. We are all nature. It kind of also comes from the idea of nature or God, which is Spinoza's God in a way. So this idea of inalienable rights, one that we're born with, are ones that exist in nature, ergo natural rights.
But no farther than that. And so the idea that whatever the people who conjured up the Old Testament creation account were doing was something akin to scientific theorizing.
Well, that's wrong. Scientists definitely existed earlier than ancient Greece. We know there were experiments and ideas like that in ancient India and the Yellow River Valley. Even in ancient Egypt, they were doing science, or at least very basic rudimentary forms of science. Right? You do something, you do an experiment, you write it down, you transmit the knowledge, etc., etc., etc.
Is a mistake that would only be made by people who don't know how to distinguish between different kinds of truth. And so the fundamentalists, like, I feel for the fundamentalists, you know, because
I actually really like this. Different kinds of truth. Yesterday's conversation I had with John literally dealt with this concept of like different types of truth. And I was saying, well, you know, a transgender person has their own truth about their identity, and it becomes like, whoa, your own truth? Yeah, subjective truth is still a type of truth. So I like this. I like this. Those who conjure up and so, no, fools, whatever. What does it say? Only made by those who don't know the distinguishing between different kind of truth. Fine. That's cool. I vibe with that.
what they're trying to do, to give them credit, is to maintain a corpus of stories in which an ethos is based. That would be the Western ethos in this case.
All this Western ethos, I don't think he's doing it intentionally, but for me, this is a big dog whistle to extremists and Western chauvinists. Western society isn't all it's cracked up to be. It has a lot of issues. It's had a lot of issues in the past. And we can't just kind of, have a unalienable hard-on for Western society. We can say that these notions, our stories, our shared conventions hold society together. But to distinguish Western society from the rest of the world really kind of draws some sort of like ideological border where there ought not be an ideological border, right? The Mongols, the Silk Road, immigration from Africa. I mean, hell, the Albany Plan of Union, Americans' own constitution and the way government is organized is built upon the Native American organization of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, as they call themselves. So I don't know if I buy into this Western society.
Case of Christianity, because they believe that the ethos is of extreme value. And I also believe that the ethos is of extreme value and that it is nested in those stories. And so they don't like to be confronted by the rationalist, atheist, evolutionary types because it blows the foundation of their ethos apart and they feel that it's worth preserving. And I think, well, yeah, it is worth preserving. Now, that doesn't mean that there are...
Does the ethos of fundamentalist Christians deserve to be preserved and is worth preserving? I don't know, man. I don't know about that one. I mean, fundamentalist Christians have been doing some fucking sussy shit for quite a while now. And a part of their ethos is that sussy shit. Not really into that. There's he'll say, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Don't keep the bathwater either, Jordan Peterson. Or whatever honestly, if the baby's wrong, throw it out. Fuck it. Fuck the baby. Hashtag fuck the baby. No, don't say that. Hashtag throw out the baby. How about this? Hashtag sometimes the baby is not all sometimes the baby is not all it's cracked up to be. There we go. That's better. Hashtag sometimes the baby is not all cracked up to be. Don't throw out babies. Don't kill babies.
Aren't philosophical problems associated...
I'll put it this way. You know what it's like? It's like a mom who's like, oh, my son is beautiful. My son is so well. He's so smart. And she literally has like the most mongoloid looking... mongoloid's a bad word. Wow, I'm just going to get canceled if I keep going this direction. But she has like the ugliest baby. Just literally not excelling in school. But to that mom, it's beautiful. Sometimes the baby is not all it's cracked up to be, Jordan. Sometimes it's not. Even though it's there, even though it's holding things together, sometimes, as Descartes says, we got to raise our foundations and start anew. Because in order to build a better building, the foundations are that which are flawed at its core. And in many ways, we have flawed foundations, especially one brought about the Western ethos. So, right, the Western ethos is not everything it needs to be. Jack writes, if they are allowed to cherry pick like how they attempt to, but the Bible, I'm sure if you could meet the criteria for having an ethos worth preserving, but I don't think it would reflect the foundation of their ideas. Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm down with it.
With the manner in which they construct their arguments. But, well,
Well,
but
what I'd like
they're
is
still
if
worthy. But it doesn't address the issue. There's a deep issue here that we're not contending with. You know, here's an example. This is, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think so. I just finished. Well, I thought about it a lot, you know, and I do try to think about where I'm wrong.
That's his
because I would like to
catchphrase.
figure
You
out-
know, a lot of times he'll say, I thought about it a lot, man. And yeah, I don't care you thought about it a lot. But them laughing, they weren't laughing at you, Peterson. They were laughing at the way in which you said it. Because that was funny. I mean, he's a great orator. We can't look at him. He's charming as fuck. We can't look Matt Dillahunty. He's smitten right there. Right now, it's just full smit.
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think so. I just finished. Well, I thought about it a lot, you know, and I do try to think about where I'm wrong because I would like to figure out where I'm wrong because then I wouldn't have to be wrong anymore, right? And being wrong is actually not a good thing. You fall into a pit if you're wrong.
And this is what I
No, being wrong is a great thing. Guys, we should strive to be wrong. Okay? When you're wrong, it means that you're learning, it means that you're growing, it means that you're changing. If you're not growing, you're not changing, you're not learning. Try to be wrong, dare to be wrong, attempt to be wrong. But not in things like jumping off a roof, right? Don't be like, I want to be wrong. Hopefully I can't fly when I jump off this roof. Don't do that, but also being wrong is okay.
point out in the lecture on skepticism, since you didn't get to see the show, is that being wrong feels exactly like being right. Nobody runs around going, oh, I'm wrong, but I'm going to keep believing this. We all assume that we are correct about a great many things. And it's not so much that being wrong is the thing we're afraid of. I think that being exposed as wrong is the thing we're afraid of.
We're also sometimes afraid of being wrong because if you're wrong at a deep level, it can really hurt you.
Oh, I agree,
It can really take you apart. And so people don't like to be taken apart. Like if you're wrong about your wife, for example, that tends to be a very painful thing. And that's something that's worth pursuing to try to figure out why that is.
That's why I hide the frying pan.
Oh my goodness.
That should make you popular. Okay, so one of the issues that I have, and you can respond to this, is that the let's say the celebrity atheist types, because I actually like that phrase, they don't seem to me to be...
So when he says celebrity atheist types, he's just saying people like you, Matt Dillahunty? I think he might just be saying people like you. I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But isn't Matt Dillahunty the celebrity atheist types? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows?
Contending with the real issues. They seem
what
to
are
be
the
going
real
at
issues?
Dostoevsky, he's a real issue. Tolstoy, he's a real issue. Carl Jung, 20 books and maybe 15 seminars. He's a real issue. Mircea Eliade. Like there are some serious heavy hitters in.
Why are these real? How are these real issues? Okay.
The religious phenomenology domain. And my sense so far, I just finished reading all of Harris's books, for example, is he doesn't contend with them at all. And it's like, for me, that's like being an evolutionary biologist and not being aware of Darwin.
That's not true. That's not true. Because, like you said, they're focused on not this metaphorical substrate notion of God. Right? They're literally responding to the American right, the fundamentalist American right. That's what they're speaking about. That's what they're addressing. There are many thinkers who they're speaking to a specific audience. They're speaking to specific claims. A religious fundamentalist will use concepts of God as Jung explains them, or Dostoevsky, or that other person I didn't read. I'm just assuming here. to instantiate and make their belief more dogmatic. Can these notions of God actually move these human beings across? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe yes. I actually don't think so. From my experience in the Orthodox world, the Orthodox Jewish world, they'll take anything they can to make them believe in their orthodoxy, per se. They're going to use whatever information they can, whatever little bullshits that exist around, whatever notions of Einstein believed in God, Dostoevsky believed in God, Jung believed in God. Right? So we have to be very careful who people are talking about. Sam Harris contends with the notion of God, but the notion of God as pertains to fundamentalists. Usually he seems to me like a very spiritual man, even though now he's like a weird meditation guru who has like a self-help app. But generally, it seems like the case to me.
It's actually a big problem. It's not something you can hand wave away. Jung was a mystic. It's like, sorry. He was about as smart as Friedrich Nietzsche.
I think this gets to basically the same point I was talking about before. The thing that you're objecting to, it seems, is that many of us don't want to address the aspects of religion that you find value in, because we're only focused on, perhaps as I'm talking in the show, from a scientific skepticism perspective of, are there valid and sound arguments that would lead one to conclude that a God exists? My answer to this so far seems to be no. And the apologists, the theologians, they keep presenting the arguments, the teleological arguments, moral arguments, and all these things. They have nothing to do with the phenomenology of religion. They have nothing to do with how this impacts people's lives. This is a question of, is it in fact the case? Is it consistent with reality that there is a God? And is it consistent with reality that there is good reason to believe there's a God? That is where the focus is primarily.
Okay, that was a based video. I enjoyed that. But yeah, that's the main concern. Is there a reason to think that the scientific God exists? Because this is, I think, what generally people are talking about. But this is the thing. I do have to use the bathroom. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put on Jack's album. By the way, if you definitely, follow it, whatever things, but I do just have to quickly set that up on OBS. So give me one second. I'm just going to hang out in the chat and talk to you guys while I'm doing it, but that's what I'm going to put it on. I'm going to go to the bathroom. So give me 1 second to pull that up. Let's stop this music. Let's stop the Spotify sounds. Give me 1 second. Let's add application audio capture. Create new. This will be Deezer. Sound. Oh, and by the way, Mace and I are still going to do our show, which is going to be later, I guess. It's going to be around in 20 minutes or so. I thought it was 5. It was actually 6. I'm quite upset about that because I thought I was going to go and get like a barbecue going, but that's not happening. So sad. So let's go ahead and add the sound application. I already did that capture. Let's do application display capture. Nope. Application window capture. There it is. Deezer. Good. Okay. And hopefully we're going to get that ironed out in a few seconds. Billy Jack, your album is great. Really, really keep it going. Like it's quite amazing. I really love it. Yeah, I'll start it from the beginning. I'll run to the bathroom and we'll be okay. Stop playing. Stop playing. God. Put it front and center. And yeah, you guys follow Jack. I'm going to run to the bathroom and I'll be right back. Did you really? I mean, he asked me if we should start at 5 and I said whatever works for you or 5 works for me. Whatever. It is what it is. Glad to see you, Mace. I'm sorry if I offended you in any type of way. I'm not trying to be off that way, but it's okay. We have like 20 minutes to go. Let me put his music on, and we'll get going from there.
Oh shit. Hey y'all. Been feeling a little strange, you know.
It won't stop till he a gazillionaire.
I've been feeling out of touch. Been living my life on autopilot, haven't been doing much. Been a while since I tried to fly, I hope I'm up to snuff. Thought I might be nose diving, but my people come in clutch. Masters of their crafts and with the passions that they love. The world's eyes can finally open up and see the light that lives inside of them. Yeah. Cause we are the ones with the art touching your heart and soul. We are the ones encouraging your goals. Forever will we be in control of the art that starts the spark, lights up the dark. Remembering nights at the park when I was in such a hurry to get old. But you know,
Won't stop till he a gazillionaire.
most my memories are blurry, but some of them gold. I'm afraid of them fading, and I really hope they don't. I know that there's a time where everyone has got to go. But if I can, I'd really like to be the last step out of the door. Leaving everything behind seems like such a bore, and I don't believe that after this there's too much in store. But if anyone out there is keeping score, you can go tell your God and fire will be my floor. However, I feel as though I can thrive whatever the weather. I'll endeavor these bonds, you know I'd never sever. And as long as my words can come through clear and clever, I promise to treasure every ledger where I can see cash filling up letters. But that could never measure up to the leisure, the leisure. Not having to be a damn people pleaser. Running my own show with those whose goals match my own. How high could we go? Just keep watching, Circle 31 is on a roll. Wanna jettison to a future where the place that I'm living in is something close to heaven, and no one I know has to work again. No sadness, don't have to play pretend. No false face just to keep the sorrow in. What about my feelings? Should I swallow them? Or well, on my sleeve, constant thoughts of what I can and can't achieve. Future is bright but slightly out of focus, hoping I can keep it up, not be beholden to the thoughts inside of my head. Hold me back, and all the negativity was throwing me off track. But now that I've just jacked the vibe, seen inside my mind, clear enough to find sparks of creativity. I make my own design, start to realign the deformed version of the very angry person I once was. But I released all the hate and anger, and what's left is love, no regrets, lust and loads of sex. But I've passed all that, and the only one that gets my love next is me and one other. If I remain blessed, one head for all the rest of my nights on the chest. King Killian. I look at life like it's a comedy, cause honestly, people commonly think that cosmically that there's one meaning for all, but now probably think there's only one path to follow. I find it comically absurd. Rethink your life, no hate if what you use works, but for others, no, your footsteps might be much worse. Don't worry about walking a mile in my shoes or vice versa. We might be able to fit each other's nights, but we have our own long nights and what hurts us. And even if the shoes were switched and those shoes fit, life's just too different. Even if it's similar things we've seen, we can't trade up everywhere our craniums being. So if you took my path, you might go on to say it's soft as feathers, or you may find yourself shattered, broken, and unable to be put back together. vice versa. Take my advice or swerve, I'm not trying to hurt you. That's why I laugh, throw my head back and let my mind grasp that I'm alive. Even though I didn't ask, here I am, I guess it's fine. Either do my best or waste away and die. Guess I can try to survive, to thrive, to vibe to every song I make. Got a world to shake, I'm here whether I wanna be or not, and it won't be for naught. Don't get caught up in my wake. I suppose I'll save you from drowning for your sake, but don't expect to be able to have your cake and eat it too. You owe me, fool, for risking my neck and livelihood for you, not doing what you should have done. If there was a woulda coulda situation, whose side are you on? You could have done more, you should have done less. You would have, but you weren't motivated by the stress. I took most of it away just to give you less, but now the marks on my body pressed. I'll always forgive, but I just can't forget. I believe I live in the ocean. I'm hoping that I can get the scratch to start it up so I can be going. Have a bunch of reasons in my head growing about how I believe my life should be led, and I can't wait to see it.
Oh my god, guys, give it up to Killian. What a fucking banger of an album that guy just fucking put together. Good job. It's just that's all I got for you. Just claps city. Really, really amazing job. Quite amazing. So yeah, I'm back. I think the conversation should be starting in about 10 minutes, which is cool, exciting. Not really. I'm getting very tired of this conversation. But once again, you know me. I can't keep my mouth shut, and I can't get out of like people's business. So that's how this works. Fire, spice, fireworks, fire. Really, it is. I've been listening to all day. I listened on my car ride through the boat. I was listening on the way back from the boat in the car. I've been just putting it like in the shower. You know, I just been killing up your album. It's a really good vibe. It's a good mixture of like spoken word rap and like lo-fi, and it's really, really good. You put good work together. I can't wait for your next one. And I'm sitting on my headphones. Nope. There we go. We want more, Jack. The audience wants fucking more. Yeah. Wow, he was working on his car. I was in a car. I guess you could say this is going automobile. 100, 100, 100. Okay, so John is getting ready. So let's talk about a few things. So when it comes to gender, I think that one of the best ways to understand gender is to think about the historical use. So just look at the etymology of gender. Here, etymaonline.com. Oh god, it's over the chat. Let me fix that real quick, because you probably can't see anything. There we go. Now it's clear for us. So in the 1300s, it was defined as kind, sort, class or kind of persons or things sharing certain traits. From Old French, gender, kind, species, character, gender. Modern French gender from Latin, genus, race, stock, family, kind, rank, order. Species also male, female, sex. From pieiru gene, giving birth, beget. Okay. So we can see that gender didn't always mean, sex. So I think this is an important thing to keep in my back pocket a little bit. But I think the most important thing here is I know Mace said in his video, he talked about the popular usage of the word, and that's why we shouldn't confuse people and use the word to mean that, like in specific social settings or whatever it is. But then the idea, then what about the word fuck? Right, if you know what the word fuck means, put it in the chat right now. Let's go ahead. Put the word fuck in the chat. What does fuck mean? If I say I'm going to go fuck this guy up, or if I say let's go fuck, right? People know what fucking mean. Those two were fucking, them were fucking, they, she was fucking. What does fucking mean here? What does it mean when we say fucking? Most people, I think, mean fucking to mean sexual intercourse. That's usually how we use the word fuck. Or I'm going to fuck you up. Fuck you up usually means fisticuffs. But generally fucking means you're going to have sexual intercourse. But if I'm talking in public, or I'm making a video, or I'm sitting in the halls of Congress, I'm not going to use the popular usage of the word fuck. I'm going to use the proper. It means what I did to your mom. Okay, Dal. I'm going to use the proper meaning of the word fuck, right? Of the word sex. It's going to be intercourse, sexual intercourse. Just because most people use a word doesn't mean that's the word we should use, right? So, like, popularity doesn't beget normativity, right? It's almost like if we look at what's popular, that's how we should use something, as opposed to not. Yes, Dal. Yes, correct. Sure. We got 6 more minutes, and I don't know what to do in those 6 minutes. God, my butt hurts. Here, let's go ahead. Maybe we'll go back to YouTube, and we'll try to find some other video to watch. What should we search on YouTube to get spicy things? How about we look up... Blah, blah, blah. Let's look up... I don't know. What's in the news lately? Let's go see what's most popular on YouTube right now. Trending. Let's see what's trending on YouTube. So, of course, Mr. Beast, that guy just throws money at things. So, this is actually insane to me. Practice Jordan Peterson impressions? I'm awful at Jordan Peterson impressions. You know, I was going down to the cave where I had to fight the dragon to get the gold, and I thought about it a lot while I was down there with the dragon, and it made me realize that the darkness is the fundamental ethos of Western society. Okay? It's like a weird mixture of like Mickey Mouse. I do like Jordan Peterson like I do Mickey Mouse. Yeah, but look at this fucking god-awful video by Mr. Beast. It's just absolutely insane. Oh my god, it's so loud. Oh, you guys can't even see it because I didn't switch the transition. Ha 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 ha. There we go. But look at this. Look at how crazy this is. Look at how bananas this video is. Like, holy shit.
Age 1 all the way through age 100. And I've trapped each of them in their very own glass cube. The last one to leave their cube is going to win $500,000.
Is this not realistic, like real life Squid Game shit? Like, do people not find this psychotic? I find this psychotic. Taking a bunch of people who are desperate for money, putting them in a cage, and seeing who is willing to stay in that cage the longest. What the fuck? That's insane to me. That just absolutely... This is not insane for you guys? Do you guys not think this is fucking insane? Am I the only one who sees this as a fucking psychotic thing to do? Put people in a cage and make them battle out for money? Well, in separate cages, have them fucking wait? Literally in tracksuits?
See which age is the best.
I'm representing for 31. I've got the best view and the best motivation.
You want the best? You got it right here. My daughter's turning 3 this Saturday. Emery, Daddy loves you. This is for you. 69, feeling fine. Yeah, I got winning on my mind.
What's your strategy to win this challenge? Keep in mind, I have over 300 cameras set up literally everywhere, so we'll be monitoring their every move. And one of the first things I noticed was that the kids had a crazy strategy.
My strategy is to make a lot of noise so people don't get any sleep and they really want to get out.
And I can't believe it, but it's working. The old people were not having it, and they started leaving right away.
Yeah, because old people don't give a fuck about that much money. They're old. They're about to die. This is insane. This is literally psychotic.
And even some of the kids got out because of them.
He's building up suspense.
Did you want the money? Yeah. Then why did we leave?
I have good news for you. You've survived longer than the 1-year-old.
Come on.
Do you think this will be easy?
I'm a World War II veteran. Peanuts.
True. I appreciate your service. Thank you.
We're a couple hours into the challenge, and 10 people have already gotten out. So we just...
This is so fucking scary. This is insane. This is literally like, it's not non-ironic. Like, this is not funny. It's just, all these people probably need money. How about you split the five? If there's 100 people in here, right? There's 100 people. 100. So just take $500,000 and divide it by 100 people. Give them each $5,000. That'd be great for everyone. But then you're gonna give one. I mean, this is just insane. People can make the argument, oh, but he has to make the video to make the money, and this way he can do charity while helping. But this is insane. He's not a non-for-profit organization.
Decided to leave them alone for the rest of the day, which caused even more people to get out.
I want to go home. I want to see my kids. Bye. I gotta go to school. I just don't think it's for me at night.
I got really bored and I miss my dog.
Here's some money for playing.
Oh, he gives him some money for playing. I guess that's cool.
Some people were more determined to stay.
You know, I'm a big family guy. Hopefully pay off my sister's student debt.
I have a deal with one of my grandkids. I'm here to show him how strong I am at 70.
I don't need a
I like how they spin it as like this positive thing when they're literally using these people to make millions of dollars and making them fight out for like cash. Have you guys ever seen that video where they made those teachers fight for cash at like a hockey rink or something? You ever seen this? At a hockey rink or something? Where was it? Yeah, this was crazy. This was like a year ago. This was nuts. Why can't I pip this out? What? Why can't I? Okay. Here. My face is less important. Look at the psychotic shit that they were doing to these teachers. They're literally making teachers stuff dollars into their shirts to use for their students. That's just, to me, that's insane. That's just so fucking psychotic.
I watched this video on the internet of teachers at a South Dakota, probably like a minor league hockey game, on all fours, trying to get as many $1 bills as they could in their shirts and their hats so that they could use that money for their students.
Yeah, this is insane. This is insane. This is just, I forget how crazy the world is. Literally dystopian society that we live in. We just live in this fucking dystopian, this unbelievable. Why is, oh, my phone's on 14%. And that's what I use for my main camera. So, well, if my phone dies, I always have another camera. Maybe we'll switch to that one right now, but my room's a little bit messy, so whatever. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Let's switch cameras real quick so my phone doesn't die. And yeah, that's what you get. You get a full view of this mess that exists in my life. Is this camera angle okay? Is this not good? I don't even know, honestly. So it's not as good as my other one. My other camera is way, way better. But this is what I don't like right here. Look a little bit better. Okay. Usually I'll have the other angle, but it is what it is. Okay, so we should be starting up on call-in soon. Yes, it is. Let me join in. And we'll get things rolling up. Let me fix the audio, guys.
And I understand his viewpoint pretty intimately after yesterday's conversation, so I think I'll be able to do a pretty bang up job. I like to think 75%. Yeah, I think I'm going to bring you down to my 75% if you stick around long enough. Don't worry, you can still be like conservative and based while also realizing gender and sex are not exactly the same thing. Don't worry, you don't have to become a libtard. I promise. But anyway, Dandan, welcome.
Hello, hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can we get cameras on?
Yeah,
Talent?
I'm gonna get my camera on. My camera might die in the middle of the discussion as I've been out with my phone all day. I do use my phone as my main camera for those who don't know. But,
that is interesting. So you plug it into your PC or your?
Yeah, I plug it into. You can even do it over Wi-Fi.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So.
Hello, Mace.
That's the wrong camera. What? There it is. There we go. So if my phone dies, we're gonna get the other camera view. I hope that's okay.
That's fine. No worries.
Yeah.
Mace is here. He has not spoken yet, but I saw his camera go on.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera to work.
It's
working for OBS, but it's not working for calling now. I think maybe I can only use it for one at a time or something. So I'll have to use the virtual camera.
Yeah, if you can't use, if you don't have the cam, it's okay. It's not ideal, but
you
I
have
actually
to,
had this.
Yeah, on OBS, you have to say start virtual camera, and it should usually work out. Oh, great.
Okay, that's not quite what we want.
You can use...
I just love the infinite regress.
You know, in the virtual camera, there's a little cog. You can choose output type, and you can choose internal scene/source. You can do source and pick whichever source you want to use, which would be your...
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mace and I both rocking the bed in the background. I'm not gonna. Don is a lot more professional at this point.
I used to have the bed in the background, but then I got one of these bad boys.
I will invest in a room divider at some point, but for now, it shows the authenticity. At least
It does. We don't look like what's her name from the Daily Wire, Brett Cooper, who's like a fake streamer. I love it.
He's fake streamer. Oh,
yeah,
I like her show. The comment section.
Oh, you mean her studio is set up to be
a bedroom, but it's not a bedroom. It's just like literal studio.
Yeah, but everybody knows that's not her actual bedroom. It's not deceptive.
I mean, some people, I didn't know. I was like, wait, is this fake? And then I had to like scroll through
really
her.
Think that Brett Cooper, Daily Wire host, was streaming from her personal bedroom? Like,
dude, that would have been so epic. Imagine.
That's like the fastest way to get swatted. That would be an insane thing to do.
Well, at least get her like a bedroom where she's standing in front of like cameras, but she doesn't have a whole crew with a teleprompter, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't actually watched a lot of her stuff, but she seems like nice. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Today, we are here to talk about gender. And so the first thing that I want you guys to do is, well, first of all, I want to set the terms of the conversation. And then if we naturally come off of them, that's fine. But from what I understand, the disagreement is about about how the term gender should be used and what it means. Basically, it's like what the word actually means definitionally, and then I'm sure we're going to get into territory of what it should mean. So the first thing I want to do is force you guys to steel man each other, and so we can use force. This is my show, bro. Technically, that's why I brought you on. So Don, I'm gonna make you steelman Mace first. Mace, if he misrepresents you in terms of what you think, correct him until we get to a good spot, and then we'll go vice versa. That should take like 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll get started.
No problem.
And I'll ask some questions.
What I understand you saying, Mace, is that gender for a long time has been used synonymously with sex. And in common parlance and in day-to-day language, gender is the main word. Gender and sex are used interchangeably in much of the context. and for academics and activists and people who try to raise awareness about trans issues or trans identity to try to move the conversation and move people to use the word gender is bad. It's unhelpful. The better way to do it, either create their own terminology and not to be confusing with their language. And because they don't do so, you're not going to adopt it and no one else should adopt it, and we should force them to change it. Not in like a government type of way, but through like social abstinence and the like.
Is that
yeah, I wouldn't describe that as forcing them to change it. But
yeah, sure.
I think you more or less got it.
Yeah. Is that acceptable, Steelman Mace? Just so everyone understands each other. Cool. That you know what, Dad, you actually there was a detail in there that I wasn't aware of, so I'm glad you did that. You understood it better than I did. All right, Mace.
What were you not aware of?
Was about. Well, I guess there wasn't anything I wasn't aware of. I guess it just clarified. It was helpful for me as well. So Mace, please. Now you have to be nice to Dandan. What do you think Dandan thinks?
I think Dandan's position is that sex and gender, the words need to... Sorry, no, let me start again. He thinks that it is necessary to make a distinction between the word sex and gender in order to clear up some statistical noise when conducting scientific studies.
Dandan, is that acceptable, Steelman? That seems slightly short.
No, that's I would say that's incorrect.
Oh, really? Okay.
I would never say that it's necessary to use any words. Words have usages. They're convention. It's not necessary to call a rose a rose. It's not necessary to call a bottle a bottle. But words have usages. So I would definitely take away the fact that it is necessary to make the distinction. What I do say...
how about useful, then? How about useful?
As opposed to necessary.
It is useful to make the distinction between gender and sex?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is useful. It is useful to make the distinction. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I have an opening question for both of you, and then I think maybe I'll let the conversation originate a little bit. But here's my question.
But the question is, why is it useful? I want to know. Do you know why I say that? That's the argument. Why is it useful?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have this new category that you want to be involved in scientific studies, and this category is sort of a mixture of personality types, gender identity, social constructs, a bunch of subjective bullshit. And instead of giving a new word to that category, you want to use the word gender for it.
But do you know why? Yeah, because I don't know why, personally. So, Mace, do you know
why you choose the word gender over just making up a new word for it? Yeah, that, honestly, I don't know.
I don't know either. That was the first question I was going to ask both of you, actually, which is Dandan. We're gonna do Dandan first, and then we might let it be original. It might go off in its own way. But Dandan, why are you opposed to using a different word to avoid any potential confusion?
I'll use whatever word people want to use. What I do say is that when other people are speaking, not me, in the academic community, one, they already use gender as a distinction from sex. This has been in the literature since the 70s. That's the first thing. So in a pragmatic, useful way, I'm not about to go ahead and, when I'm reading scientific papers or whatever the like, be forced to be like, fix it and get mad. I'm just gonna, this is the word they use. If I'm in those academic circles and I'm writing and communicating with them, I'm gonna use the language that they're willing to work with. Just like if I'm at a bar and I'm hanging out with my friends, I understand that woman and female are used interchangeably, gender and sex are used interchangeably. I'm not gonna argue with people about that. So in that's one pragmatic use of the word. The other one is the question, why did these scientists and sociologists and psychologists adopt the use of sex as gender as to mean a social construct? And it has two reasons. One of them is the historical use of gender, as before like the essentialization of the term to be synonymous with sex that happened in the 1800s, as it exists beforehand in the 1300s and 1400s. And the second one is, while the writing was developing, these thinkers used this language, and that's just how the language developed. They did like research about what does it mean to be a woman, what does it mean to be a man, gender and sex, and as they were going through it, they're sitting within their circles and saying, okay, so we'll use sex to mean this and gender to mean this because we're seeing this phenomena. And as the language developed in the 70s, 80s, 90s, that distinction in the academia was created. It's just a natural process of how words and usages are created within syntax.
Well, within academia,
or even in society, right? Like we do this all the time with words as well, like based or queer or gay
sure,
or whatever.
Like that's how language evolves in general, but in terms of gender specifically, it evolves.
Yeah, it evolved within academia, and then through academia, it moved into society, or it's moving into society.
Okay, so you're not on principle opposed to using any different words than gender. You're not going to like run against 40 years of what the academics have decided to do. Okay, Mace, you are willing to run against that, and that's something that I think is kind of cool. But I am kind of curious as to why. Why are you unwilling to use the word? If the word is just a label for a particular type of meaning, and as long as you're specifying the meaning, why are you opposed to using it in the word gender in those specifically academic contexts?
I'm quite a fan of science, and I'm a fan of helpful communication, and I think by taking over the word gender as opposed to using a new word, you're hindering communication, because gender is a word that already has meaning, and as John would often say, it's a semantically overloaded term. So yeah, it's a very simple argument. I just want communication to be better.
Okay. What if you specify? I'm sorry. I should probably just let you guys talk. This is the kind of the last thing I'm gonna say, which is, Mace, I tend to agree with you, but Dandan is saying that he will switch based on context, right?
Yeah, but if sorry, I have this thing where like I think people can read my mind, so I'll try and explain a bit better. I think the word gender is a non-scientific and semantically overloaded word that should not be used in science at all. Not just by Dandan. I don't think any scientists should be using the word gender, because as soon as you use the word gender, you make your scientific study harder to understand and harder to translate.
Okay, so you are running against what the scientists are doing because you think it's semantically overloaded. Okay.
I don't even agree that 100% of scientists are doing that.
Okay.
I'd say maybe most modern scientists are now, as of the last 10 years, but before that, I'd say maybe 50-50, and even further before that, it was a minority of them that were doing this. It's a very recent change.
Yeah,
sure.
And it's a change that hasn't even fully been realised yet. And I think we need to stop it before it reaches 100%.
Okay, so I think we have made each of your positions pretty crystal clear, which is kind of my only job. So yeah, Dandan, you were going to say something. Away you go.
I was just going to ask, do you recognize like scientists as people who have an authority on how science ought to be done?
Not quite sure what that means.
So if I have studied biology, and I have an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, a PhD in it. I've been doing research in biology for a long time. And my peers and the rest of the peers in my university who have expertise in this field have recognized the need to use specific verbiage to make our research and our understanding more clear. Why is it that you believe that you have the knowledge, the expertise, and the experience to tell them that's the bad word? Like, what is your analysis of the literature, other than just the way in which that literature corresponds with the public, like within the field itself? Like outside of, like, I understand that you don't like the fact that the word has issues with communication with laymen and people in public. I don't like it either. It makes things difficult. But within the field itself, like right, that's what I'm trying to talk about.
I think science should try to avoid synonyms and use as precise language as possible.
Yeah,
so
which is why they don't use
ideas,
sex and... Sorry.
So that scientific ideas can be communicated to the public. because science is useless if it can't be communicated.
Yeah, so science decided to not use a synonym and make a non-synonym between sex and gender. That's exactly what they did. They saw a synonym where there wasn't needed to be a synonym because these notions were different.
So I would put it a different way. I would say they have this new category that they want to introduce into their studies, and they decided to take a word that was already a synonym and apply it to this category, as opposed to just making up a new word.
But it wasn't.
That's just really, it's a silly thing to do. They should have, someone in the room should have been like, whoa, hold on a minute, that word's already in use, let's make up a new one.
But the thing is that the word in use, gender, wasn't like, you know how, for example, synonyms aren't exact meanings of each other. They're words that have similar meanings. Like, for example, watering.
Sometimes they are completely interchangeable.
For example,
like in the case of sex and gender.
watering and flooding, these are two synonymous words that have different contexts. Like, if I say you're watering my floor,
sex and gender
could mean
are not
I'm
just
flooding
synonymous, they're
interchangeable. Watering my floor could mean you're flooding my floor, versus flooding my plants doesn't mean you're watering my plants. You're over-watering them in a way. So the words have different usages. And gender, historically and contextually in language, is not strictly synonymous with sex. It hasn't been so. We can look back into the 1300s to see that it wasn't synonymous with sex. Right? We can just go on etymology.com right now and pull it up. And we can see that, right, let's just look up gender etymology.
Well, I don't speak Old English, so I don't know, and I don't care, because I speak the language of today, and the language of today has it where gender and sex are completely interchangeable.
No, it doesn't. Cool. The language of today in the last 10 years has it that they're not completely interchangeable. That we do have this disagreement in society.
I disagree with you on that.
Who's disagreeing with me on it?
I'm getting background noise.
Like 90% of human beings.
90% of human. How about in America, and in England, and in Western society?
So I wouldn't know.
And in Western society,
in England, I'd say 90% of Englishmen.
Okay, and if you would go to class, for example, and someone told you, "Well, we use this word differently," would you say, "No, I'm refusing to do it," or would you say, "Okay, I'll just do it"?
Depends on the context. If we go into we're in a class, then I'd say no. Let's make up a new word for whatever you're talking about.
And the professor explains to you that, well, this is the use of the word. It has been so since the 60s and 70s. The reason why they did it, they had good reasons to do it. You can read their writings about it.
I would explain to them
that it's
gender
confusing.
is a non-scientific term that used to be avoided in science. It's only in the last 10 years people you, not you, Dandan, I mean you, the professor, have been trying to introduce this non-scientific term to science.
Now you say that it's unscientific. Are you doing science, Mace?
Define science.
Do you work as a scientist who studies sexuality,
I'm not
gender,
paid to
psychology?
Science, no.
No, you're not I'm neither a scientist, nor is John a scientist. Scientists have used the word scientifically so well that they were able to account for statistical. They were able to account for statistical noise and develop theories that deal and make predictions and treatments for people who suffer from gender disorders. How is that non-scientific?
Maybe. All right. Let's say, for sake of argument, they are able to.
I want to ask Dandan a clarifying question after this, so go ahead, Mace. But just be aware.
Let's say, for sake of argument, that you are able to clear up a lot of statistical noise with this new category that you're calling gender. Why can't we clear up that statistical noise with that category, but give that category a different name? Surely that's the best of both worlds. We're clearing up statistical noise and we're avoiding communication issues with the public.
Why not? Yeah, but why can't... So, sure. Do you want to use a different word?
Yes. That's literally my whole argument.
So when you make... So my issue with you is when you make videos, you don't clarify that. You just say gender and this, and you don't clarify, oh, gender means this is what is meant by gender, this is a novel concept that is used to make understanding in scientific literature. I advocate that we should all try to use Gengar, but you don't do that. You just say gender is this and moves on.
Okay. Are you gonna? What's this got to do with my position?
Your position is that you're not interested in clarifying here. If you were interested in clarifying, you would clarify.
We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about gender.
We are talking about gender and my issues with
why
because it doesn't seem that you actually want to discuss gender as the professionals think about it, as people actually talk about it. What you are doing is not helping the public discourse by attempting to help the public discourse.
Public discourse or not is not relevant to the discussion.
It is, because your entire goal of not using that word is to help public discourse. But it doesn't seem like you are helping public discourse. I aim to educate people on what the use of the word is.
No, it's not. Nothing to do with this.
No, because the argument is...
You're saying my position is flawed because I'm a flawed person.
No, I'm not saying you're a flawed person.
Guys, I understand what you're both saying, and you're talking past each other. This is why I'm here. What Dandan is asking is if the idea of the reason why we shouldn't use the word gender is because it's imprecise and because it is semantically overloaded and therefore has not great societal downstream effects, right? I agree. I actually have a lot of sympathy for this view. But if that's the case, Don is asking, in your videos, you do not clarify that or make that distinction. And he's kind of like the reason why you use the word gender in your way as opposed to Don's way. You don't replace the word, you don't explain this. And he's asking you why, because wouldn't that help the societal discourse that you are worried about?
I didn't come on here to talk about why I use the words I use in YouTube videos. I thought we were discussing the use of the word gender in science, but we can go down that road if you want. I'm gonna need...
Yeah, but none of us are scientists. None of us are scientists.
A specific example of me using the word, and then I can explain to you why I used the word. But I can't just make a general statement. So I don't know what you're talking about.
But scientists have agreed, or have the consensus of scientists have agreed to adopt this uses of gender, specifically the medical community and the psychological community. We're talking about the APA, we're talking about the Yale School of Medicine, we're talking about real institutions that run our medical institutions have adopted this distinction because they find it useful in medical research, medical understanding, and medical learning. None of us are in this room are scientists, so I'm not going to go ahead and tell scientists that they're wrong because I feel like it. I'm going to try to hear them out and say, okay, appeal to authority is scientists say because they are legitimate authorities. Chosen, an appeal to authority fallacy is only a fallacy when the person is not an actual authority.
Chosen's trap there.
Hold on. So, from my understanding, what the appeal to authority is when you appeal to authority and also cannot explain the reasons or the legitimacy.
No.
You can't explain the legitimacy behind the authority.
He's saying his position has more legitimacy because it's supported by authority.
Yeah, but an appeal to authority is only a fallacy when the authority can't be established as an actual authority.
No. That's not.
Yes. We can look it up right now.
Well, I was under the impression that even if the authority is legitimate,
regardless of what it's supposed to mean, I think the way Chosen meant for you to take that is the way I said it. You think because
appeal to authority. It's important to note that this fallacy should not be used to dismiss the claims of experts or scientific consensus.
Can you
appeals to authority are not valid arguments.
What did you mean? Chosen can tell us what he meant. We don't need you to ask Google.
But Don, even within that definition, nobody is saying that the appeal to authority means you just dismiss all authorities. I think the idea is the fact they're in a position of authority alone does not make it true. You have to show the underlying reason.
But when every time I bring it up, it's being ignored. That it has pragmatic, research-based utility. It can help us understand. It helps us.
John, he is dismissing me on authority as well. He's saying you can't say this because you're not a scientist.
Because you're not a scientist.
Let me clarify where we're at real quick. Just again.
Yeah, he's saying you can't tell scientists how they should conduct science.
Mace, where we're at right now is that Mace's objection is that while the scientists have authority, that alone does not make them right. They have to be able to show the underlying logical reasons and the pragmatic utility of not just the concept, but of using the term gender specifically. And Mace is challenging those underlying reasons and logic, and therefore
the
appealing
key
to
word there was specifically. They need to
Right,
show
and
me why gender is a better word than a new word.
right,
Well,
and
the
so what
reason
Mace
why
is
they use
saying is
gender,
not
yeah, but
purposeful.
when I answer it, it says that you just respond with "I don't care." If it's true that language develops as a natural part of like inquiry, words don't have intrinsic meanings; they have usages, and through the literature and historically, it has developed in this way that now, 60, 70 years later, we're finally parsing out all this technical stuff, and all this literature that has been based on it has used gender to mean a social construct as opposed to sex. Then that's what's happening. It's just the usage of the word is how it exists now. And we can go ahead and try to now change all those papers, re-educate everyone just because there's a public disagreement. And I'm saying is the solution might not be just to change the word from the scientist perspective, but why don't we advocate for that change in the public?
Okay, that's a great question. Why do you prefer to change academia's mind as opposed to changing the public's mind, Mace?
I think regardless of which definition of gender you use, gender is still an unhelpful word to use in science, even if the public all agreed that it means whatever you want it to mean. There's still an issue there. And I think the issue's probably mostly with translating to other languages. Because if you're translating the word gender and sex to another language, I don't know how to explain this, but it would be really quite difficult.
But I speak Hebrew, and I've spoken with people who speak Hebrew, and they don't have an issue translating to Hebrew. German, in their language, have more than, in English we don't have gendered words. It's very much it. We don't have like she for the table, but in German they have she, he, and it. Some languages have around 4 genders for their words, so we could make that change.
Actually, I have a better response. A better response would be, if in order to change, if we were to change the public's mind on this, we would have an issue because gender is not the only word it would have to be changed. Gender is actually a root word or a compound word in a bunch of other words and terms, so it would break the language if we changed what the word
Like, can you give an example?
For example, gender reassignment surgery. If we are going to change the word gender to mean something else, then it's like, oh, gender reassignment surgery now means you're reassigning your bunch of like social things. Like,
But gender, you can't. A person can't change their sex by getting surgery. Mace. Sex is biological. It's your chromosomes and their complements. It's not like you can't. If you're born a cis man, you can't change into a cis woman. Right?
Sure. Technically speaking,
so it is gender reassignment surgery.
You can't change your sex, but if someone gets surgery to change their sex, what they mean is they want to do the best they can to make it look like that's happened.
So I had to change my camera angle.
Okay.
Could you repeat that? While that was happening, there was like an audio lag with my camera switching. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I agree with you that you can't really change your sex, but when someone gets a sex change surgery or gender reassignment surgery, those two terms are used completely interchangeably. They think they're getting a sex change, but what's really happening is they're just getting the next best thing, which is they're changing their body to look like the other sex.
Correct. They're changing their gender. They're not changing their sex. Which is why the word makes a lot more sense as gender reassignment surgery and not sex reassignment surgery. This is why it's transgender and not transsexual.
If gender is not biological, why do you need surgery to change your gender?
Because gender as a concept doesn't denote specific biological reality. It denotes the norms that that gender is expected to have, and some of the expectations that we expect of women is to have these specific biological phenotypes or morphologies.
Getting your genitals cut off doesn't change your expectations.
I mean, it does. The way your pants look, you don't have a bulge in your thing, or like, why do women want to get bigger breasts or bigger lips or have like a nose job? Because there's a specific gender things you're trying to emulate. A lot of women who have really, really flat chest might be like, I don't feel like a woman, and they get a boob job to make them feel more like a woman. Or women who have really, really hairy legs are ashamed of it because they don't feel womanly, so they wax it off to appear more womanly. That would be the gender aspect playing on their expression, on the way they express physically, or want to or need to express physically.
I just don't see how the surgery helps with that.
Well, it helps them. People who suffer from gender dysphoria, it helps them. It's not a matter of how you or I can see it.
It doesn't change what expectations are put on your gender.
Well, you have the expectations because you have the gender. Like, gender is subjective and it's a social construct, so you might not expect, like, I don't want to bring this up because it was, I guess it came off mean, but can I talk about your voice or no?
Talk about my voice.
Okay. John's voice is kind of like nasally. My voice. My voice has a little lisp in it.
Actually, let me tell a real story.
Okay.
I have a back issue, and apart from it being healthy for me to stand up straight, one of the reasons why I wanted to stand up straight and try to train my muscles to do that, because my spine doesn't do it by itself, because I have a back problem, was because I wanted to project the type of, masculine confidence and like broad shoulders and that all sort of thing. So that was a conscious decision that I made. And if Don, you want to use that as your example,
I would argue it goes further than that. That you're also trying to walk correctly, because there is a correct way to walk.
Right. No, I said besides the health reasons, because that alone is reason enough in my head as a developing kid.
Let's put it this. Yeah, for me, I don't know if you guys notice. I tend to sometimes have like a lisp when I speak, and people have told me that I come off as gay when as gay when I do that, and that's fine. That's all fine and dandy. But a lot of times when I was younger and I would hear myself, I would have like an issue where I would feel like, wow, I don't sound like a man. Like, I want to sound like a man. And I just came to terms with the fact that me having this little lisp or this like cadence to my way of speaking doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean more manly. So my normative, my ought statements, how a man, a biological male is supposed to behave in the world or present in the world, I took away that idea because I am a man, a male, using them interchangeably on purpose here. I am a male, and it's okay for men to have this type of voice. So the social construct is like the normative way upon which we expect specific sexes to behave. So a person who's transgender is someone who was born a male or a female and feel like their normativeness, the way they should behave, is in line with the way they expect of females. But not only the way they behave, but also the way that they look and the genitalia that they have and the way their body is supposed to look. And that's where gender dysphoria comes in, when there's that dissonance and they have serious adverse psychological problems because of that.
So, yeah, actually, when I was watching your show yesterday, you said that you think...
Watching that? Aw,
not live, obviously. I was at a wedding at the time. But you think that not all transgender people have gender dysphoria.
Correct.
And that's like a huge disagreement I have with you there. And I think that's a fundamental disagreement, because it suggests not only do we have different definitions for gender, but we also have different definitions for sex as well. And
why?
Different definitions for gender dysphoria and transgender. We have so many different definitions. It's like,
I don't think we have
really
a different. I don't think. Can you
communicate.
define what a transgender person is?
Someone who has had surgery. Someone who has had gender reassignment surgery due to their Well, actually, no. I suppose anyone that's had gender reassignment surgery. Yeah, but the only people who would get that surgery are people that have gender dysphoria.
Some people don't have. They can get it because they want it. I mean, if you want, I would never do that. But I guess you could find someone who doesn't have gender dysphoria and pays for a doctor to do it because they want to. I doubt anyone does it. There's some people with like auto whatever it is where they want to chop off limbs off their body. No, not autogynephilia. That's like the weird, like science.
People who get off on feeling on pretending like they're a woman.
Yeah, we're talking about people who literally just enjoy maiming parts of their body. And if you want to maim your dick, I mean, go for it. I don't think it means that you're transgender. For me, transgender is anyone who is born in a male or female who presents as the opposite, quote unquote, normal gender. They're transitioning their normativeness. So like males are expected to behave
How's
to grow up.
How's that?
So for example,
I think you know what I'm going to say.
Boys are expected to grow up and be men, whatever the category of man means. And when they grow up and decide that they don't want to be a man, they want to be a woman, that's transgender. But they don't have to want to change their body. Because a woman doesn't necessarily have big tits, right? They might not want to have big tits. They think being skinny and petite is feminine, or they like women who are big and bulky and muscular. That's also fine.
Sorry, so what's the difference between a transgender person and a what's it called, where they just dress up? Cross-dresser.
Transvestite.
What's the difference between
because a cross-dresser,
transgender in your
I mean, transvestite is like a weird, outdated word, but a cross-dresser is someone who likes to dress as the opposite gender but doesn't identify as the opposite gender.
They do when they're dressed as.
Not necessarily, just might enjoy it. It doesn't mean that
they could identify that way.
Well, if they identify as the opposite gender, then they're transgender.
What word do you use to describe people who have undergone gender reassignment surgery if not transgender?
People who have undergone gender reassignment surgery. Or you can use the outdated term.
We literally already have a word for that. Transgender.
No, that's not what that word. And the older term used to be transsexual, which means people who have undergone gender reassignment surgery, or be at that time in history would be sex change surgery. But today you don't use that. That word is just not used because.
No, I've heard people say sex change too.
Yeah, but it's not used today in the lingo. You can say it. I'm not going to tell you not to say it. But transsexual, not all transgenders. I'm using an outdated term, are transsexuals, because not all of them get sex change surgeries or gender reassignment surgeries.
So we foundationally disagree on what a transgender person is. Where do we go from there?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would say that
I'll tell you what you do is that one of you chooses to use the other one's definition while not ceding any ground on your meaning for the purpose of the conversation.
So a transgender, let's just use transgender people for this conversation. Transgender people are not all transgender people get sex change operations.
And what does transgender mean?
Well, you remember what the ganger is, right? The social form of sex, that's social expectations, where someone can be
yeah, okay.
So not all transgender people get sex changes. And a lot of transgender people don't want to change their body type because it's not related to what they feel about themselves. They don't want to change their body. They want to present as the ganger of feminine as opposed to the ganger of masculine.
So a transgender person is someone who has changed the way society expects them to act.
Oh, they identify different than what society expects their sex to act. So they act in the opposite ganger, the one that is usually expected, the ganger of feminine, which is expected of females. And people who are transgender tend to have a lot of ganger dysphoria.
Ganger dysphoria, not gender dysphoria.
Ganger, yeah. I'm going to use the word.
This is too complicated for me.
Mace, he means the same thing, but he's using a different word other than gender because we're trying to use something more specific.
No, ganger dysphoria is different to gender dysphoria.
What is the difference between gender dysphoria and ganger dysphoria in your mind?
Do you think they're the same thing?
I mean, I'm just using the word to make things. What do you think gender dysphoria is?
So gender dysphoria is when you think that you were born into the wrong sex, the wrong body. And gender dysphoria is when you think society has the wrong expectations of you.
Okay, so did you ever Google gender dysphoria and like look up what it is?
Yeah, I've probably Googled it a few times in my life.
Okay, so if you just
Why
go
does
to
that matter?
Mayo Clinic, gender dysphoria is the feeling of discomfort or distress that might occur to people whose gender identity, and by gender they mean ganger identity, differs from their sex assigned at birth or sex-related physical characteristic. Transganger and ganger-diverse people might experience gender or ganger dysphoria at some point in their life. However, some transgender/ganger and ganger/gender diverse people feel at ease with their bodies with or without medical intervention. A diagnosis
What's
for
a gender diverse person?
a gender diverse person is a person who their ganger is either not normative, it's queer. It's either fluid, it's either non-binary.
What's a non-binary person?
It's a person who doesn't sit within the norms, the intersubjective norms around the ganger of feminine and the ganger of masculine.
So literally everyone in the world then?
No. Do you identify as a
one's
non-binary
perfect
person?
archetype.
No, but do you
Yeah, but
identify?
no one's a perfect archetype of male or female.
No, but
so
do you
everyone's
identify? Do you
non-binary.
identify within the archetype or not? I identify within the archetype of masculine. I think John identifies within the archetype of masculine. Do you identify within the archetype of masculine?
I would say I'm fairly balanced between the two.
Okay, but do you consider yourself? So you might be non-binary then, ganger-wise.
No, I'm a man. There's no such thing as non-binary.
Ganger, non-binary ganger, because ganger is on the spectrum.
Yeah, I reject that. That's a real thing. That doesn't exist.
You reject the social construct of gender?
I'm just a relatively feminine man.
Okay, fine, sure.
Do you
I don't know why you
aspire for?
refuse.
Let me ask you just a clarifying question. Is there a particular social ideal that you try to reach or model yourself after?
Yeah, I try to be a gentleman.
Okay. I think that's what Dandan means. I think that's when he says non-binary, what he means by that. And by the way, I don't love the term either, but I just try to use the terms that people what they mean. What he means is that you're a person who doesn't strive for the feminine ideal or the masculine ideal.
Well, I think the gentleman is the archetype of masculinity, but everyone has their own opinion on what the archetype of masculinity is. It's almost as if it's subjective.
It is subjective.
Which is why it shouldn't be used in science.
No, but sociologists deal with subjective ideas. That's why they've coined the concept of intersubjectivity, which is the study of subjectivity.
That's why sociology is a fake science.
It's not a fake science. It's just not a hard science. It's still a science.
I just have to say that every time just to upset Don. Okay, so nobody's calling in because you're all cowards, but I do have multiple comments that I wanted to read. One is actually from me because I'm more important than the comments, which is Don. Do you agree with the terminology saying that sex is assigned at birth? Like, wouldn't it be more accurate, even under your worldview, to say gender is assigned? But like,
okay, I'll tell you why. Because the reason why this comes from and I've spoken to my brother about it, who's like a bio major and wanted to go into med school, and then he ended up switching to chemistry. So I asked him why they use the term assigned when I was first learning about it, and he said, well, it just comes from medical jargon where the doctor literally on their sheet, they have sex, right? They have the sex of the baby, so they just write they just check off male or female. So the doctor assigns it because they don't actually check their chromosomes. They kind of just look at their penis or the vagina or whatever it is, and assign it to them because it's not a lot of people who are intersex can have both parts. It doesn't mean they're male and doesn't mean they're female because we know sex is defined as chromosomes and their complement. So it's just a technical term. It's not it's weird technical terms. You could say recorded, you can say the sex identified at birth or the sex recognized. I don't care what word you want to use. The literature use assigned, so when I talk about the literature, I'll just use their words. Between you and I, if you want to use recorded, noticed, recognized. We'll use whatever word you want to use.
Well, it's funny, Dandan, because while you mean it that way, people who colloquially throw the term around like that was the sex you were assigned would not say that that term is interchangeable with recognized, because that would say that there's something inherent there that is being identified as opposed to something being arbitrarily like labeled.
I mean,
So
because
if that's how you use the term, I'm totally cool with that. But
sex, sex isn't binary. We know it's not binary, so you can never. It's never. Sex is bimodal.
You can't get away with that. It is.
Yes,
binary.
I can. But
There's
what about
two.
someone who's XXY? What sex are they?
Sorry, you realize men have multiple X chromosomes. It's not just one X.
Men have X. How many X chromosomes do males have?
More than one. I think it's like 20 something.
Mace.
Mace actually isn't wrong. You're talking about the sex chromosomes.
Okay, the sex chromosomes. How many X chromosomes do males have, Mace?
It doesn't work like that. The presence of one or more Y chromosomes makes you male. The presence of less than one Y chromosome makes you female. Simple as that.
Is that really how you think it should be defined? Where did you learn this?
That's literally how it works.
If a person is XXY, they literally have like estrogen flushes throughout their body while
Doesn't
also
matter
having.
how many X chromosomes they have. If they have a Y chromosome, they're male.
What if they have half a Y chromosome?
Is that a thing?
Yes.
I don't know about that one.
But this is why biologists recognize sex as bimodal, because it falls
is
on a
there
distribution.
such thing as wait a minute? How can you have half a Y chromosome?
There's genetic disorders all the time. There's genetic
But
disorders all the time.
If it's cut in half, then surely it can't be the letter Y. What shape would it actually be?
Mace, they're not actually Y or X. They just resemble that shapes. They're called that. But the Y chromosome just refers to that.
Think Murphy's correct. It would look like a V probably. It would be the bottom of the Y.
So what do we call someone who's XV?
Well, if they have a V chromosome, there's no way of knowing if that was meant to be a Y or an X.
So what does it matter?
Well, in that case, their sex is unidentifiable. We don't know what they were supposed to be. The deformity is just too great.
Okay, so it's just as someone in the chat told me, it's just a smaller Y branch. It's a little cut on the bottom, but they don't necessarily are males or females. They fall somewhere in between.
They're male.
Mace, they fall,
if
but
it's tiny Y,
they present
that's male.
They present.
If it's a V, we don't know.
But they present differently. They present differently. So why? Can you explain to me then the errors? Okay, let's pull up this information, because it seems to me that you're making this like grandiose thing that falls in the face of academic and medical understanding and biological knowledge for no other reason than a categorization.
It's another ad hominem again, and
there's no. I just asked you to explain something to me.
Affects whether or not my position is correct.
Mace. I'm asking you to explain what you're saying, because it sounds absurd to me. Because usually, if you say
one at a time.
You're saying, and I'm saying that if there's no Y, then you're automatically a female. If there is a Y, you're automatically a male. Even if you have two X's, you're still a male. But if you have three X's, you're a female.
More than two X's.
Okay, so
you have lots of X's.
Huh?
Men have lots of X's.
You know what I meant in the sexual chromosomes. I've explained this before. In the sex chromosomes.
Yeah, and you should know what I meant, that the number of sex chromosomes doesn't matter. It's purely just the presence of a Y or not.
Okay, so when you're, to be specific, if I will have someone who's XXY, in the medical literature, you think I should just write male?
If they have a Y, then male, yeah.
How does that help you pragmatically in understanding their biology?
Because that's what male and female mean.
Mace, do people with XXY chromosomes have different biological reality than people who just have XY?
maybe, I don't know.
The answer is yes.
Or not,
the answer is it does matter.
Matter.
It does matter because when we're creating,
you can
let me finish
give
speaking.
Them another
Let me finish
subcategory
speaking.
under male.
So what would be male? What?
Male with intersex deformities, if that's the case.
Then male, the concept of male, is on a spectrum. It's not binary.
No. Disagree.
How can you say that?
Because there's only two. That's binary.
But what if you're XYY?
This is what we call a circle.
Then it's a triotomy. And what about all the other variations of having the tail cut off on the Y or other genetic disorders that might exist? You're just wrong, Mace. We just have to look this up.
Okay, hey. Dandan, the medical things that you are looking at that are convincing you that you are right, put them in the chat. All of the audience can look at it because I just don't want to get another 10 minutes to going in circles. I do have a question from the chat from you, Don.
I need you to I need Mace to show me where he got his information wise.
Right, no, you too, Mace. Like wherever you're pulling this from, put it in the chat.
Like hopefully it's not just like from your cerebral fluid or something.
So Aha is saying that these things that are outside of the binary, she's putting this in chat, that it's like basically it's a genetic condition that affects males. And so basically what I was going to ask is, do these exceptions, because these exceptions are by definition aberrational and are oftentimes actually diseases, do these really like kind of destroy the rule that it is a binary, and while there's exceptions to the binary, that doesn't make it not a binary? What would you say to that kind of idea, Dandan? Especially in light of many of the edge cases you're talking about are actually conditions and diseases.
Well, if we're trying to categorize and conceive of reality as it is, right? We don't take our norms and we don't instantiate them onto reality, whether we let reality instantiate our norms or our concepts. And because we do have those edge cases, however small they are, they still represent a truth about reality, that biology is not just bimodal this or that. We can conceptually do that fine. We could do good and bad and have all these dichotomies. When we actually out in the world and look at nature and look at reality, it's never as dichotomous as we think it is. These things have variations and they change and they have abnormalities, and these abnormalities just let us know that it's not that.
So let me ask you one more thing and then I'll get to more chat questions, because we're only supposed to go for an hour or an hour 10. I'm going to try to find some questions from Ace as well.
I'm not too tired, so I'm happy to go on for longer if Dan is.
Well, I only really wanted this to be around an hour because I've got three in a row over the last couple days. But Dandan, if this is the standard, so like if rules have edge case exceptions and stuff, and then that means we cannot call the rule as generally what it is that not a problem, right? Because now you're kind of getting rid of the whole concept of rules of thumb.
Yeah, so in science, heuristics aren't reality. Heuristics are there to help us.
So in scientific, sure, in science, would you say that colloquially it's fine to call it a binary?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you would call it a binary colloquially. Who uses binary in colloquial language? But in general day-to-day life, if I'm talking to a kid, I say, oh yeah, we have boys and we have girls, and you leave it at that. Unless they need that topic for whatever question they're asking.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you're talking to a kid and the kid is a boy and says, I think I'm a girl, you say, well, you're not, and you leave it at that as well.
I asked them, what do you mean? And they say, well, I want to wear a dress. I'm like, yeah, you can go ahead and wear a dress.
Don't ask them what you mean. You say,
why not?
Wrong,
Mace, why not? Why not?
Because they're wrong.
Why? No. What do you mean? What do you mean by boy, kid? Because when I was a young kid, I had a cousin. And I asked I'm like, Mom, why is Dan a girl? And she says, Dan's not a girl. And I said, yeah, but he acts like a girl and he talks like a girl. And she was like, well, Dan's not a girl. And I moved my whole life thinking that some boys just act like girls. Dan ended up being gay. He wasn't actually a girl, just he had feminine qualities that I assumed were from girls because I was too young to really understand the difference. So when a young kid comes to you and says, oh, I feel like a boy, comes to you and says, I feel like a girl, you ask him why. Because if they tell you because I want to put on makeup and I want to put on a dress, it seems fun, and I can't, you say, oh, of course you can. Go ahead. And you leave it at that.
And you say, of course you can, but that doesn't make you a girl.
But when he says he feels like a girl, he means that he wants to wear a dress. He
Right,
doesn't.
yeah.
He doesn't mean he has a vagina.
You tell him.
He doesn't mean
you're a boy.
It
You're
doesn't
allowed to wear
mean.
makeup.
It
you're not
doesn't
a
mean he
girl.
has a vagina. It doesn't mean he has a vagina.
Yeah, I know. But
So
you
he's
need to
not.
tell
The
him
kid
he's
didn't
not a
ask
girl
me.
so that he doesn't get
My kid didn't
developed
tell me,
gender
do I have a
dysphoria.
vagina? The kid didn't say, do I have a vagina? The kid said,
No,
is it
he-
okay for me to wear a
He
dress?
said he thinks he's a girl.
And you ask him, what does he mean by that? And he goes, well, I feel like I shouldn't have a penis. I'd be like, but you do have a penis, right? But I feel like I shouldn't have a penis, and we can explore that. But if they say, I just want to wear a dress and makeup, then you say, go ahead, wear a dress and makeup.
You need to.
You don't have to be a
child,
girl
but
to wear dress or
he's
makeup.
using the word wrong though.
What do you mean? You tell him like you
If
tell him you
if
don't
he
have to
thinks
be a girl
wanting
to put
wear
on dress and makeup.
makes you a girl, then the child has a misunderstanding of what the word girl means, and he needs to be taught that.
If the kid if your kid is 3 and doesn't even know what a girl means, then you teach him what a girl is. Billy, what is a girl? You go, Dad, what's a girl? Well, a girl is someone who's not a boy. So they usually have a vagina, or boys have peepees and girls have vagina. That's what I mean by that. And then they come to me, yeah, but I feel like I'm a girl because I want to wear a dress. Well, you don't have to be a girl to wear a dress. Go ahead, enjoy wearing a dress. That's it.
I'd also add to that, you're not a girl.
But they already know that you just explained that already. Why would you have to reinforce that?
They just said they think they're a girl. They need to be told they're not.
Okay, I'll say the thing again. If a boy comes to you and says, Dad, what is a girl? And you say, well, a girl is a person doesn't have a penis, has a vagina. And then they go, yeah, well, I feel like I want to be a girl because I want to wear a dress. But like, well, you don't have to be a girl to wear a dress. Go ahead and wear a dress. Do I have to then repeat, and you're not a girl?
Personally, I'd recommend a kilt.
You do need to explain to them explicitly to avoid any miscommunication.
I think kids get it. I think they're okay, Mace. I don't know what you're worried about.
Not all of them.
I don't know what
Not
you're worried
all of
about. I don't know what you're so worried about.
Well, I'm telling you, if it was me, I would need it to be said to me explicitly.
I can tell. I can tell.
Okay. There was another question. There was a couple other questions. Trying to find it. Somebody says you work at a British Home Office, Mace. Just letting you know. Somebody said that. It's very cool. Somebody asked if you could change.
I'm not gonna say where I work. I'm not doxing myself.
Yeah, I know. I didn't really expect you to answer that. So one person asked, Dandan, are you equating trans with wanting to maim your own body?
No, I would never do that.
Sure you're supposed to reject that definition, right?
Yeah, no, of course not. You can be trans and not want to maim your own body.
Aha said something interesting earlier on. Something about what was it?
Aha said that
she said there's this thing called Klinefelter syndrome, which only affects males. It's when a male has an extra X sex, so one more X chromosome than normal for a male.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, this is what we were talking about earlier, which is like a lot of the playing in the gray that Dandan is referring to is abnormalities brought on by diseases, and oftentimes, even in those scenarios, it's still a male with an affliction as opposed to
so
it falls on the edge. It falls,
and the scientific term even recognizes that it's still a male, just with one extra chromosome than normal, with a deformity.
But what you're not recognizing is that if you graph maleness and you do it like this, it's already not a binary. It's not a thing or another thing. It's on a spectrum.
That's
and at the
you're
tail
looking
end,
at it as maleness and not.
And at the
you're looking.
I'm
at
saying
it
male. I'm saying male. I'm saying graph male.
Yeah.
If
male
okay,
is one
so
option.
you have
female is the other option.
If you have XX, and then you have XY, and they have XYY, and XXY, you would put them in different points on the graph. You don't put them in the same point.
No, they're all male.
No,
they're all male.
Mace, if I'm looking at males, I'm just going with your definition, and I put them on a graph, I put XXY, XY, XYY, and I graph it, and I do a little curve, it's no longer just one thing. I call the spectrum male, but it's not. No, I understand you, Mace. Male. You're just saying that entire spectrum is one thing, but it's not. Because scientists
it comes under one word. That means one option.
but you don't. You can call it male, but there's a Mace. But there's a difference between them.
Let me try to make this better. Mace, would you be willing to admit that while all sex chromosomal makeups that involve Y fall under the label of male and fall under that category legitimately, there is also variance within that category based on those types of conditions? Would you be willing to?
Of course, you can zoom into any binary category, not just sex and gender, and there's always going to be nuances the more you zoom in. You can zoom into anything and find nuances.
Okay,
that doesn't stop it being a
so
binary.
why is it that they're called intersex? Why is it that medical community recognizes Klinefelters as intersex?
Because they're born with the sexual organs of the opposite sex, so it's hard to determine which sex they are without doing a DNA test.
Mace. So they're male, but they're also considered intersex.
Yeah, the intersex is, I don't know which sex this is, because it looks male and female. It has both the sets of genitalia. That's all it is.
Yeah, so it's intersex. So
it's not saying they're literally both sexes. In reality, they are only one sex.
Mace, you're contradicting yourself. You're contradicting yourself.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are, because you're simply creating a concept, a linguistic concept, to maintain your opinion, or maintain your point of view, or argue your point of view, and then at the same time recognizing that what am I doing?
I'm saying that you should change your phrasing to.
Okay, your argument hedges itself on the concept that this intersex categories XX, XXY is considered male because you define as male as having a Y at the end of it, any Y, without recognizing the reality that the biological reality of these people is intersex, where they have hormone flushes and things that also resemble females.
No.
To
I
just
do
call
recognize
it
that. We just disagree on what intersex means.
To just call
Again,
it,
it's another definition.
To just call it male, has no real utility other than to call it male.
Other than to recognize that they both involve the Y chromosome.
Yeah,
right?
That's fine, but
the utility in having the categories male and female is to separate people with and without a Y chromosome.
And how does that play out medically in research? Like, what pragmatic utility does that give you when you do research? They have a Y chromosome? That's it?
Yeah, it's incredibly useful, actually.
So why not just call them? So
there are lots of differences between males and females.
So what do people do? What things? If I would graph females and I would graph Klinefelters, what do they have in common?
Males with and without Klinefelter syndrome.
No, Klinefelters, people with Klinefelters and people who are females, what do they share in common? If you would do in class, you would do
females.
Female XX chromosomes, XX and XXY. What do they share in common? If you could take all their traits and put them in common on a Venn diagram, what would you put in the middle?
I'm sure they have a lot of things in common.
Biologically, morphologically.
Probably more things in common. I mean, that's like saying I couldn't even list the number of things men and women have in common.
Mace, come on. I can tell you. You know what they both do? They both share genitalia. They might share genitalia. They also might share specific hormones. They share so many things, which is why these concepts of male and female aren't just binary. Right? Because there are things that females share in common, people who are intersex. When you look at the research and the data on this, people who are intersex or males who happen to have Klinefelters, however you want to say it, share things in common more with females than those who don't. So when you actually put it all together, there's a little intersect at the bottom, at the very tail ends. They're not entirely discrete.
That's nothing to do with this at all. I could have more in common with a woman than another man. That doesn't mean anything.
Aha is such a piece of shit in the chat, honestly. That's okay.
Hey. That is not in keeping.
Aha is literally saying the same things.
No, I'm being called man. I'm allowed to be upset about people in the chat. That's okay. Ignore me.
And also, John, I'm like,
you're not allowed to.
Can I just add, if Aha is a piece of shit for what she's been saying, then Dan is calling himself a piece of shit.
I'm a piece of shit.
He says the exact same things about me.
I'm a piece of shit. Well, the thing is, I have looked up the research. I'm quite aware. I didn't just look up a Wikipedia thing, but that's all right.
Both of you, not like.
But the point, the
this
point
is why I've blocked him on Discord.
I mean,
He
yeah, you
says the
can
exact
you
same
can block
things
me on
that Aha
Discord.
has been saying.
You can block me on Discord, but that's fine.
Hey,
You want me to
let's stick to
post
the
more
idea.
research,
I'm gonna
Jester?
unfollow you if you
Okay.
off.
So.
I'm gonna like seriously, like I'll do it. I don't care. I'm God here.
I mean, that's fine.
You can,
the point
there's
is.
a couple things in chat. I want to go to a couple things in chat and let you guys cool off for a second. Then we can get back into the ideas, and then we're gonna be done because I'm tired. So Aha is asking you, Don specifically, the half a Y chromosome thing. Is that an actual syndrome?
It's
Like
just the bottom of the Y gets cut off, so it's not exactly a full Y.
Is that an actual syndrome?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That claim has been IDK maybe says effeminate males and masculine females don't justify gender defining drugs and surgery for children. Other than that, who cares? This is an issue that affects 1% of the population. I'm pretty sure Don agrees with you on this. I largely agree with you on this. Yeah, it's like if a girl comes up to you and says, I feel like a boy because I want to wear Converse and jeans and cut my hair real short, you say that you can do that. That doesn't mean that you're a boy. It's okay. Some other questions.
I'm gonna find out what they want. They want the name of it, so I'm just gonna look it up.
Yeah. Go ahead and find it. What serves community? Okay, so now Sterling is asking a question kind of in regards to Mace's linguistic binary. So Dandan, you seem to be upset because he's just this is just how he uses the words and says here's the two categories and then there's variance within them. And you think that because there's variance within them that bring the two categories so close that you shouldn't have the two categories at all, at least not in scientific discussions, if I'm understanding you correctly. So Sterile Gurley, and if I'm not, tell me. But Sterile Gurley asked a question about this. She's asking which one of these frameworks served community? Is it better to keep it simple? Is that there are two polar opposite sexes having a spectrum of characteristics leaning one way or the other, but still two sexes? Is that kind of binary more societally useful than the kind of idea where there is no binary because the categories can get close?
I mean, it's useful. I guess it's between in everyday language, sure, but I think the importance here is how medical communities deal with this, how scientists, how biologists deal with this. And from everything that I've read, biologists recognize sex as bimodal, not as binary.
Andrew says, hey, now we can only say millions of people in the world are mentally ill and a danger to children, but we do not insult spammers in the chat. It's so true. Well, here's the thing. It's not about the people themselves. It's, I mean, the whole debate is over a lot of the debate is over about whether it's personal or whether it's kind of more of a mental health issue or like an ideological issue, and getting that right is different. But no, I mean, I get what you're saying, Andrew, but the whole point of having useful conversations is talking about the ideas themselves and not the people who you're talking about it with. Now, those ideas can also involve people outside of the conversation, but it's just not productive to do at home stuff. It's just not. So, it's kind of funny, but it's perfectly consistent. Some talk about transgenders and sports stuff about that. Read what you posted in Argentina. That's too far down. Scroll and post it. Okay, now that you've cooled down a little bit, what were you disagreeing on? I forget.
I mean, I also just posted a thing about male chromosome Y micro deletions, which kind of like half of it is just kind of out of there. It's not a full Y chromosome, quote unquote, half a Y chromosome.
Right, and okay, so Don, or Mace, I'm assuming you have a response to that.
Sorry, response to what?
Don.
No, I'm just talking to the chat. I posted in the chat the half a Y chromosome. It's Y chromosome micro deletions. It's a mutation of a mechanism for Y chromosome, right? So.
Okay. Yeah, we already went over that earlier. I said there's no way of knowing if the V chromosome was supposed to be a Y.
It's not V. It's not V. Whatever. I don't know where you get V chromosome. I don't know if they call it a V chromosome. They still call it a Y chromosome. I don't know where you get V chromosome from. You're just like gave it a word because you gave it a word.
The bottom of if you have a new concept, you give it a new word. That's what I
Yeah,
think
but
should be done.
you're just
If you
naming it
cut
things
off
to
the
name it
bottom of a
things.
Y, you get a V.
Mace, let me ask you something as we close out here. It seems on the categorization front that the main bulk of the disagreement is because a lot of the things in the different categories that you set out of male and female or man and woman, because there's variance in those categories, some of the variants within those categories become awfully close to the point that there's a lot of trait overlap. And so Dandan is asking you, given this, why are you so insistent on the binary? Since there is a great deal of overlap in terms of the edge cases, why not just...
The overlapping things he's looking at aren't actually important. The people who were born male but have male and female genitalia, they're still only going to produce sperm. They're not going to be producing eggs. So we know they're male.
So that's the all-important thing.
The important difference between males and females is, do you make eggs or sperm?
Okay. Dandan?
There's no point in responding to that.
Oh, come on.
I mean, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? It's not important to Mace because they don't produce sperm, but they're important for the medical community. They're important for understanding how these things intersect. They're important in understanding psychological phenomena. They're important in understanding biological phenomena. Just because you don't produce sperm doesn't mean that you don't also produce similar hormones or lower levels of hormones and find ailments that are more likely to be, for example, people with Klinefelters are more likely to experience
new subcategories to include those people with
Klinefelters are more likely to experience heart attacks in their back. Like, females are, how men get pain like in their chest and women generally feel it in their back, like a strain in their back. People with Klinefelters also can feel it in their back. So these intersex categories.
Klinefelter to describe them then.
Yeah,
so Dandan, let me ask you this question. So what Mace is saying is that he's completely fine with recognizing all that variance and showing that overlap and talking about it. Like, I'm assuming that he doesn't want you to ignore it. All he's saying is...
I'm just saying that variance is not sex. That variance is something else.
What is sex then, Mace?
If you produce sperm or egg.
No. Define sex. Sex is your chromosomes.
Sex is if you have a Y chromosome or not.
So anything without a Y chromosome is female, and anything with a Y chromosome is male.
Yes.
And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go and read up on biology for it, because I think that, and to be honest, I don't think that you actually have any reason to think this other than your own schemas of how these things ought to be.
Okay,
I'm just being what I think. You want me to lie?
It's not relevant where you think it's coming from.
No, I do think it's relevant. I do think it's relevant because the conversation here is about the usage. The conversation here is about the usage of the words. And if we're going to care about why words need to be used in a specific way, it cannot be just for categorization reasons. Right? We literally discussed that it's not how we use words. Like, why do I use gender to mean the social construct other than just a category reason?
Categories need to be precise.
But the categories need to be precise so we can do research and use them properly. If you're just making a category for the sake of the category, who cares?
Right. So, okay, Mace, what's the sake of of basing the category specifically on producing sperm or eggs? What's the utility there in using that as the primary characteristic that the variance between whether or not you produce sperm or eggs takes precedence over all other variants? Why is that useful to you? Why is having a Y chromosome having a Y chromosome or not? This is the thing that definitively.
That's like saying, why do you need to know if someone's male or female? Depends on the context.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you are telling Dandan that whether or not you have a Y chromosome, whether or not you produce sperm or egg, this is the most important thing. This is the thing that actually determines your sex, regardless of all other variants.
Oh, okay, you've misunderstood my position there.
Why?
The thing that determines your sex is if you have a Y chromosome or not.
Yeah.
I'm saying...
Why does that take precedence over any other trait?
There's lots of differences between people that have a Y chromosome and people that don't, but I think the big one is that people with a Y chromosome are supposed to produce sperm unless they're sterile, people without a Y chromosome are supposed to produce eggs unless they're sterile.
And I would say that instead of being descriptive, you're applying a normative basis rather than a descriptive one.
I think sex is descriptive.
But you're just applied a normative to it. They should have, and therefore they should be considered male. Rather than saying just giving a descriptive account of it.
No. I said if you observe a Y chromosome, then we describe them as male.
I think I've actually solved this. So Dandan is, if I'm understanding you, Dandan, you don't want to impose categories because that would involve imposing a value system that values some traits as more important than others in a normative sense, as opposed to just describing.
Yeah, the role of science is just to describe, not
Mace,
to suppose.
You think that, and Mace, you think that the differences that are attendant to having a Y chromosome or not, primarily the production of sperm or egg, is the most important thing, and therefore should be the broader categories that all other variants fall under. And so this is just value. No?
No.
Okay.
I said the presence of a Y chromosome denotes male, and there are lots of differences between males and females.
Right, but
even
why
males
is that
that
more
have
important?
Klinefelter syndrome or whatever it's called.
Right, but why is having a Y or not more important than all the other traits?
That depends on the context.
No,
what do you want to know?
No, it doesn't. Why you have to know why
it does. I don't know what the study is. What are you studying?
Mace, regardless of context, you're using it to create these categories. Regardless of context. Why are you doing it? Like, I'm not against you. I'm just trying to understand why.
This is how language works. We have words to categorize things.
But language doesn't have intrinsic meaning. It has usages. What's the usage by which you're making this category?
We use the word male to talk about people with a Y chromosome.
Because they should what? You use the word should. Like, I don't know what else to say. Is male only those who should create sperm? I'm not following.
Yeah, okay. I think the issue is with the word should. Sperm makers, if you like. But
I feel like we've reached the Izot problem.
There are some sperm makers who become sterile and have issues generating the sperm, but that doesn't make them cease to be male. They're just a male with a disability.
Right. Well, okay, still being of the nature to produce egg or being of the nature to produce sperm.
And ideally, we would be able to medicate them to undo that disability, to help them produce sperm in the future.
But you're only talking about karyotypes, right? You're ignoring phenotypes entirely. You're only talking about karyotypes, which are only one aspect of sex, right? Because a person with androgen sensitivity syndrome is XY, but like literally comes out looking like a girl. But you're ignoring phenotypes whatsoever.
Why they're male.
Yeah, you're ignoring phenotypes. You're refusing to recognize.
Males can have deformities that make them look female.
Why are you not recognizing phenotypes as a valid understanding of sex? At all, like just plain chromosomes without phenotypes at all.
Well, I don't know what phenotypes means, but I think you're referring to deformities, and deformities do not determine your sex.
So what did just chromosomes?
So again, Mace, this is the question.
Deformities are for a different conversation.
Right, and Mace, this is the question. Why
this is exactly the dishonesty, guys, by the way. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Just not doing research, not giving a fuck about understanding, conflating the is and the odd gap. Like consistently.
Why is that why? I guess
that is how
even John is getting
used.
Okay, wherever you're pulling that from, throw it in the chat. I want to see it.
Just anecdotal. I see when I've noticed in my life, if people use the word male, they're talking about people with a Y chromosome.
Well, it's a very full circle to when we were talking about gender at the very beginning. I mean, I think there's a normative case to make that reproduction is the most important thing, and that's why it kind of is king of the kingdom in terms of categorization. That would be kind of what I would say. But yeah, it's just because that's how it's been colloquially understood for a long time that's okay. We're back to the fundamental divide on gender.
I'm quite shocked to hear that after that whole circle, we're right back to the point that the reason why X, Y, you define it as male is because that's what people use in everyday language, rather than us giving a real pragmatic usage of the word in any scientific, empirical, or necessary concept.
Pragmatically, I'd say it's consistent with other words in the language.
Pragmatically is not just about consistency. If we look at pragmatism, it's something that gives us conceptual utility in like the development of science and research. Pragmatism is not just useful. It's useful with the ability to make predictions.
The main reason scientists should be avoiding synonyms is for the sake of consistency, because a consistent use of a word makes it easier to translate into other languages.
Precisely, which is why we don't conflate sex and gender.
No, that's why we shouldn't use gender in science at all. Because if you start using the word sex and gender in the same scientific study, that's going to be hard to translate into another language. Because
not
those two
really.
words
You can
may
translate
or may
it.
not be the same thing.
You can just use the word gender, and you can just use the word sex in other languages. We do it all.
Hebrew. If you're using those words
is a language.
interchangeably or not, the presence of both of those words.
Many languages will just adopt. Like for example, there's no word in Hebrew for telephone. So you know what happens when they use the word telephone? They just use telephone. In Hebrew, instead of saying zan, which is like vaguely translates to gender, you know what they use? They just say gender. So they speak their language, and then just add the English word to mean what the English word means. That's how simple it is.
Yeah, that's not going to happen with sex and gender, because in most languages, sex and gender has a known translation, and that translation may or may not be what the scientist is.
Yeah, so when they do science, they should just use the English word.
No, they should just use the word sex to avoid confusion.
They should use the word gender to mean ganger in other disciplines, because that's how it's used in the scientific literature.
They should use another word.
I am noticing we're kind of back exactly where we started.
Oh my goodness, it's never gonna die.
I think that we might have fleshed out.
I think we're done. But
I mean, this has always been. I understood it from the beginning, and I have like.
Well, Dandan, it's not just about you. Okay.
I wanted to give a word in.
Thank you for your public service. There's a couple of comments I'm going to go through before we close out real quick.
What about the caller?
Huh? There's
a
caller?
Andrew.
Oh my God. Okay, Andrew's here. Andrew, I wanted to read your comment. I'm going to go through the comments, and then Andrew, you can speak. Andrew commented in the chat that Argentina has it figured out effectively. Gender surgeries are available.
You can say what you want, by the way, Casey.
18 years plus after psych evals, and all medical treatments are publicly funded instead of privately managed for profit, which turns people into lifelong medical patients.
It's actually quite
absurd
how little he actually researches what he says. Like, I call him out, and it's just so simple.
I like lots of parts of that.
Like it's quite absurd. He started bringing like the whole male and female stuff, and
yeah, okay. Andrew, good, glad to have you, man.
It's like there was no reason for it. There was like literally no reason for it. I was like, where'd you get this from? And it's nowhere. It's just his fucking ass. He pulls it out of his fucking ass. It's fucking pathetic.
Respectful that when you feel like, you're right, but you really don't have a way to articulate your statement, that you just laugh or but I think that's really like a minority of the conversation. I think there are some useful parts of it, but I thought I might share a couple of things that maybe will knock us off of the merry-go-round and maybe leave people with some food for further exploration. So there's numerous societies where gender roles are normatively considered to be very different than they are in Europe and Europeanized America. So one like probably really common go-to would be Thailand and other parts of Southeast Asia. There's very clearly 3 genders in Thailand.
Thank you for the alley-oop,
other
by
regions
the way,
of Southeast
bro.
Asia that have the same kind of cultural
Because I was
background.
like, what the fuck is he talking about? He just thinks that any Y means it. And he defined it out of nowhere. When you ask him where he gets it, it's
caused
just
any
out of his
type
ass.
of degenerative society-ending problems. And there's also in pretty much
There's
the
no
vast
reason for the
majority
definition
of
other than for
indigenous cultures
conceptualization on his
in
own.
North America, there tend to be 6 gender roles that are pretty well established for a very long time. And contrary to destroying their societies, I mean, indigenous societies in the Americas are far older and more stable than those of Europe. And they actually I mean, they're in some ways used as an
I tried
aid
to
for
bring it up, but they
reproduction.
wouldn't let me
So
finish
it's
that. I
kind
kind of
of
brought up so
fleshing
stereotypically.
out some of
You're not
the
talking about
more
karyotype rather than
common,
phenotype, but I'll
what
bring
you
it
know
up
what a
again.
Westerner might
I did bring
call
up androgen sensitivity
abnormalities or
program.
wrong thinking if they were trying to enforce their own gender roles by actually fleshing out what
So
are these different gender categories that they are, again, they are still more of a spectrum, but you kind of get sorted into 6 rather than one of 2 categories, and they actually aid in reproduction as far as how people are kind of encouraged to pair off in these societies. And
Sure.
I
As
can
far as I
research
understand,
and yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
I'm sorry if you have to finish up. As far as I understand,
yeah, I did. I brought up androgen. Did I
those
not bring up
societies
androgen
would
sensitivity
not say
syndrome?
that the person is like
I'll bring it up in my
a
last
man in
statement.
a
I'll
woman's
get
body,
my
just
last
that
word
there's
and I'll bring
different
it up. I'll bring it up. I'll
social
bring it up.
roles.
I'll
It would
bring
just
it
be
up.
a purely social thing, as opposed to like a internal identity not matching up with your body type thing, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I
Just
mean, I
clarify.
suppose that would be true. Yeah, I suppose that would be true. And again, it's because in these particular instances, these extra gender categories are, again, they are more aided at sexual reproduction, which again kind of goes back to the different, that there is a very obvious difference between gender and sex in numerous different languages for many thousands of years. It's been pretty well recognized. And I guess like a couple other things that I would say about I really do think that the overemphasis
I
in
did try to bring up the idea
conversation
that like
and
he only
the
cares about
higher prevalence of
chromosomes and not
surgeries for
phenotypes,
gender
but I'll bring
reassignment
up androgen
in
sensitivity syndrome
America and countries
specifically.
that
I
have
actually have it pull it up
the
on
most
the stream next to
similar
me, so we'll do it then.
economic and social systems has a lot more to do with the fact that there's financial incentives involved. So, for
Sure.
instance, political parties or individual opportunists can gain currency and political capital by virtue signaling about trans issues rather than offering any type of material concessions as a part of their political platform. So, I mean, really, truly, I do think focusing
Politics,
on it.
yeah.
Huh?
Welcome to politics, yeah, unfortunately.
Sure, yeah, yeah. I'm not shocked and awed.
Right.
It's perplexing, but I think that really truly saying that there's a secret cadre of people with gender ideology as a jihad that are going to destroy Western civilization. I mean, that really is playing into the hands of people who would prefer that the mass of people are politically unviable, like just not capable of enacting any change for any type of positive
No problem, Casey.
momentum
It's
for the
okay.
vast
I'm
majority
done
of
with. I'm not going
people.
to talk about
The
gender
more
for
that
like
people
a
are
fucking
focused on
3
that
months.
issue.
Do you really think there's no legitimate concern there?
I mean, not really.
Peace out.
Like I
Peace out.
mentioned in one of my comments, I think that
What are they
the
even talking
prevalence
about at
of
this point?
these surgeries and
They're talking about like gender
it's like
ideology or something.
the same motivations
Let me
that
lower
would
that
cause
volume a
somebody
bit.
to really push that type of
I think the main like idea of like what's happening here in this entire conversation, as I've said before, is Mace just defining things for the sake of defining things without actually having a real reason to define them. And when I say real, is one that is useful in like actual understanding of the world. And it's this lack of using the word in a way that helps us understand the world. It just helps us instantiate the norms that he already believes of what one should have or what should be, rather than recognizing that if we're just trying to understand the world, there are intersex people who don't fall in within this both stereotypical and phenotypical notions of man and woman, male and female.
cost lives. It didn't have anything to do with ideological shift expressing its power against the medical establishment. It was a financial incentive. So I don't think that that's very different. And I think that, once again, like there's what if you could see inside the box of what you're defending when you're like advocating for the strictest possible interpretation of Western style gender roles.
No, he has
you
no
look inside
idea.
the box of what
And
am
he
I
speaks
defending
so
by doing that? It's
confidently
very
about it,
little
which
to
is
nothing.
shocking.
Like you're actually
Right?
wasting resources.
Male is when you have a Y chromosome,
arguing
and
about
that's
this
it.
rather than putting
It's
resources
quite
into
absurd.
a genuinely pro
Yeah.
people political project.
Yeah, I think you're over pushing a little bit. Those traditional gender roles coexisted with a rather large explosion in civilization and well-being. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessary.
I mean, yeah, I brought up fuck before, but no, I brought it in my stream. I didn't bring it up here. Whatever. I think that he just always looks like such a fool by the end of it. It's just absurd.
I mean, the founding and growth of America.
I'm kind of grateful for those things. Call me crazy. Call me old-fashioned. I think those things are good in a lot of ways.
Well, let's take the Industrial Revolution. The British created the first fully mechanized industry in textiles by designing the tax code and the local laws in India to prevent India, which was the previous seat of hegemonic or the most profitable, powerful textile.
I mean, yeah, the confusion argument is total horseshit, as he's willing to be entirely confusing with his language. So
the best of the technology to Britain. So
Andrew, I'm not saying that any of it. I'm not saying
that
it's ugly. I'm making a much broader and rather limited point.
Well, if you're making the case that it was civilizing,
I can tell you.
And I also want to point out, he said he blocked me because I always ask him to provide research and that he doesn't do the research. Never, ever has he sent me articles and research. Not once. In the chats forever, I've been sending him articles and research. I've never gotten a single piece of article or research from him when I tell him you don't research the topics. So
civilizing did not reduce savagery or chaos in the world. And to the contrary, it cost tens of millions of lives.
Okay, I would also. So I'm going to say two things, and then I'm going to try to actually get to comments and actually close out this show. I'm not really making a claim on my own. What I'm actually doing is I'm just combating what you said, where you said you look in the box of what's traditional gender roles, Western gender roles may or may not be defending, and that box is pretty much empty. And I'm telling you that traditional gender roles coexisted with the Industrial Revolution and all of these things, which, while they had their problems, made the hockey stick of history possible and absolutely on the net increased well-being, without a doubt. It's not debatable. So when
it's extremely debatable. That's why I just made
really
two.
It is, because that's a post hoc argument, John. You're making a post hoc argument. You'd have to show a directionality between that instantiation.
Right. No, I'm not claiming.
You have to show causation.
I'm not directing rationality. I'm not saying there's definitive causality there. What I'm saying is that if your claim is that you look in the box and there's pretty much nothing there in terms of the utility of traditional Western gender roles, I'm telling you, you don't know that. There might be an awful lot there, and a lot of people think there is. So when you say there's just nothing there, I would say that that's a wildly contentious claim. But it's okay.
I mean, the point I'm making is that defending the gender roles is not defending Western society's very existence. And I mentioned numerous societies that had very different gender roles with a very long-standing history of prosperity, and yes, including technological advancements. So it's a pretty clear case that I'm making.
Again, I'm going to note that the history kind of goes like this. I'm just going to put that out there.
I think history goes like
Environmental destruction goes like that, but history is largely kind of like an ebb and flow.
GDP, I'm sorry, and then attendant well-being increase.
And also GDP is absolutely not a stand-in for well-being. The GDP per capita can grow without the actual living standards of 99% of the population growing, because the wealth of 1% increased.
Well, I can give you better stats. How about the fact that absolute poverty was cut in half in 20 years or something?
Again, that's a standard that can be
a million
waved away.
Infant mortality, maternal mortality, all these well-being things. My point is very limited. You really don't need to argue with me on this. All I'm saying is that over time,
you brought it up.
You brought it up. You said that there was nothing that you were potentially defending. What I'm saying is that
no. You're saying that Western society. No, you're saying Western society is the harbinger of increased prosperity and well-being and awesome things like the Industrial Revolution, and that Western binary gender roles are at least correlated with that, and therefore I should be careful what I'm saying.
Yes,
and I'm making
because it's at least correlated. And those things are good. So maybe before we start fucking with the shit that like made things really good, maybe we should be a little bit cautious.
Who did it make things really good for? 1/7 of the world's population at most. And again, GDP per capita can be great for 10,000 people and horrible for 330 million.
170,000 people every single day are lifted out of absolute poverty. It's something over 100,000.
You can wave a pen and do that, John.
15 years. That's pretty good for everybody.
You can wave a pen and do that, John. And poverty is increasing in the U.S. I'm not sure if you noticed that. Even by the
standard's been consistent. The UN's been measuring this, man. If you don't like this metric, take it up with the UN. This isn't really what we're here to argue about. So I don't want to. I don't really want to be that guy, but I do want to respect the people who I've invited. I want to respect their.
All right, yeah, you can withdraw that point. That's fine.
No, I'm just saying the conversation's over because I don't have any more time to spend on it. But if you want to call in to a different show where we can talk about this at length, I would love to do it. But I have to respect other people besides you and my own ego of the desire to continue this conversation. So I'm going to cut it off there. But thank you for coming on. I do appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Don has made a rather serious accusation. She says that you have mischaracterized the Y chromosome microdeletion. She says that the condition actually regresses to the mutation of a missing gene with the Y chromosome, and that the source you posted actually specifies that the condition affects male fertility, which display biological sex characteristics.
Yeah, because I don't consider that not male, because I think that being sex is not just karyotypes. It's not just chromosomes. It's also phenotypes. Like a person who has androgen insensitivity syndrome and presents fully as a female is not male, even though they have an XY chromosome. They present fully as a female, but they have an XY chromosome. That doesn't make them a male.
Do they produce eggs?
It doesn't make them a male. There's a lot of people who have XS chromosomes who don't produce eggs.
Or are of the nature who produce eggs.
So for me, they're intersex. They're not male, they're not female. There's somewhere in between.
Is everybody intersex?
No, no one's intersex. I just explained it.
I'm sorry. So what makes somebody male or female, precisely?
A combination of their chromosomes and the chromosomal complement, which is why sex is on a curve. It's not binary.
Right. So they're not actual categories.
They are categories. They're constructs. They're not like.
Right, but they're not categories with lines, really.
I mean, most things in nature are not binary. Like most things are in binary code. Like what's a mountain? What's a hill?
But based on your criteria for binary can't even exist.
Yeah, binary very much doesn't produce in nature, and they don't produce eggs, by the way. I guess get someone in the chat, my brain trust, tell me they don't produce eggs. But yeah, most things in nature aren't binary. This is the postmodern critique of modern philosophy, which treats nature as dichotomous rather than flows and ebbs.
Well, I appreciate your consistency on that one.
Jester, I'm pretty sure that means that all mountains that aren't Mount Everest would be hills under that definition, unfortunately. Lumio says the problem is that everyone is too concerned with making themselves sound knowledgeable to have a meaningful talk. I think that's true a lot.
I don't think I sounded knowledgeable in this conversation, and I'm fully prepared to admit I'm a very ignorant person. I know fuck all about anything.
Okay, final words then. I'm going to give you a chance for a different final word than that, Mace. But Don, I'm going to make you go first.
That's fine. I think the most important thing here is that we recognize that words have usages. They don't have intrinsic meanings. And words and language, specifically in research and science of anything empirical, are only good insofar, and this is normative claims, about oughts, how words should be used is to give us real pragmatic utility. Utility in the ability to expand our understanding, expand our science, expand our thoughts, and make us make more sense of the world, not less sense of the world. I think that when we understand concepts such as sex, to simply reduce them to either chromosomes or phenotypes is a mistake. They carry both of those things. Gender, as well, is not just one thing. There's a lot of interplay here. It's important to understand that we shouldn't be getting lost in our own cerebral fluid. Our notions, the way our mind thinks, the fact that we want to make dichotomies to make the world make sense is lazy and doesn't actually help us make sense of the world. Dare ourselves to be creative, dare ourselves to step out of our dichotomies and understand the world for what it is. Not a dichotomous black and white reality, but a reality of matter that changes and moves and changes all the time. That's the world we live in, and that's the world that our language should reflect.
Okay, Mace.
Your
turn.
Probably go
Is that
with
Thanks.
two genders. No. So I forgot what I was going to say now.
It's okay.
Yeah, because
I have something. You can call Dandan soap and line to his brain falls out, and then you can just leave it there and not add any substance.
Okay, no. I remember already what I was going to say. Okay, right. A feminine man is still a man, and a male who is born with a defective vagina is still a male, and males are supposed to produce sperm. Humans are supposed to have 10 fingers. A human born with 9 fingers is still a human, they just have a disability. A male who can't produce sperm, still a male, just has a disability. Just because there are variations within categories does not mean those categories don't exist.
Okay. Thank you both, gentlemen, for being mostly peaceful, mostly civil. I honestly, this went a little bit better than I thought I was going to go. So I hope that this was a enlightening conversation for people, maybe not to come to an answer, but to at least understand the disagreement better. It does seem to just be a disagreement on categorization and the utility or the non-utility of it and things of that nature that are very weird. But thank you all for being here.
But I do want to say, though, for people to follow Mace or me on YouTube.